I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. In flooded out areas of eastern Kentucky,
I mean, it happened so fast. I've cried a couple times.
hundreds of people have had homes wash away or be inundated with rising water. At least 8 people have died, and there's a search for others.
We have people here that are unaccounted for, and that's the reason why. They were running up on homes that had been splintered apart and washed downstream, and so that's why they're still trying to get an accounting of everyone in this area.
Fox Weather's Will Nunley in Hazard, Kentucky. There's also been flooding from the St. Louis, Missouri area, where 2 people have died, to Virginia and West Virginia, and in Las Vegas. That's on the Las Vegas Strip. Heavy rain led to gushing water in a few casinos and parking garages. President Biden spent a few hours on the phone with China's leader amid tension over Taiwan, which China claims is its territory.
China is demanding House Speaker Nancy Pelosi cancel a potential trip to Taiwan, alleging it's a betrayal to the Chinese-U.S. foreign policy agreements. President Biden told the Chinese president that the U.S. policy on Taiwan has not changed. Now, on that call, President Xi warned President Biden that those who play with fire will perish by it.
Fox's Matt Finn. The president denies the U.S. economy is in recession. A classic definition of one was met when GDP showed economic contraction a second straight quarter, but the president says
significant banking personnel and economists say we're not in a recession.
Now, he and Republicans are sparring over a new Democrat spending plan that he claims will lower inflation. They say it'll make our economy worse. The bill would include new initiatives to fight climate change, something activists demand.
What do we want? Climate justice!
That was a protest last night outside a congressional baseball game in Washington. At least 3 demonstrators were arrested as Republicans shut Democrats out in the game 10-0. America's listening to Fox News.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
And now a small business setback, delivered by a kind French stranger.
Monsieur, there was an accident. The windshield of your catering van is, how do you say, kaput? But Progressive has an extensive network of repair shops. Now, we sing about the old days. Brave marin revient de guerre.
When things go wrong with your small business, it's comforting to know you have Progressive Commercial. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Croissance for everyone.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:03, and we do have a beautiful morning right now as the sun is about to rise. 64 is our current temperature here in Columbia, on our way today to a high up around 85 degrees, and it's going to be pleasant, and we also are going to dry out a little bit right now. Our sunrise officially at 6:07 this morning. Good morning, everyone. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you in the 6 o'clock hour. We're going to begin again, folks, with almost record flooding right now. It appears to be a record again in St. Louis for the second time in 4 days. Interstates completely shut down, boats again having to be used to rescue people. All sorts of problems yesterday and even this morning with the record flooding. St. Louis Congresswoman Cori Bush is calling on Missouri's governor to take action immediately. Her district has been affected most in this area, the 1st Congressional District. She says she wants the governor to deploy the National Guard to St. Louis to assist residents with evacuation. Now, Congresswoman Cori Bush also wants Governor Parson to urge FEMA to get on the ground in St. Louis, and she wants Parson to call for a federal disaster declaration from President Joe Biden. Missouri is under a state of emergency already due to the record flooding in eastern Missouri's St. Louis region. Our acting governor, Mike Kehoe's issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency. He's acting governor because Governor Parson is still in Germany on a trade mission. He doesn't get back to Missouri until sometime tomorrow. Now, the Post-Dispatch has a number of photos of the situation in St. Louis. You can find those on stltoday.com, their website. Their reporters have been embedded with the firefighters on the boats, but one of their pictures is at St. Louis Glass, which is a landmark location in St. Louis. If you're from there, you know where that is. And the water inside St. Louis Glass is high enough, according to their chief executive officer, to bust through a front door. That's according to Brian Kreitner, who does construction work at the site. Again, Congresswoman Cori Bush calling on Missouri's governor to ask President Biden for a federal disaster declaration. We'll keep you posted on that. Meantime, if you have purchased gas recently at the break time in California, Missouri, or 3 locations in Jefferson City, you need to pay close attention to your vehicle to make sure it's running correctly. Break Time Convenience Stores is saying this morning their Truman Boulevard location in Jeff City is now reopened and is back in business. And they also say if you bought it at Tipton or the 2 locations in Sedalia, it is fine. However, if you purchased it at the California, the other 3 Jeff City locations, they're still not 100% sure what the situation is. There are people who are reporting problems, and Break Time says the problem involves fuel delivery with their primary carrier, a company called Midland. If your car's running poorly or you're having problems, you need to call Break Time. The number is 1-800-876-6357. That is according to their Facebook page this morning. Excuse me. Columbia City Manager says the municipal employees are the city's most valuable resource. To Carlin Seawood proposing a 4% across-the-board pay increase for city employees. That's in addition to the 3% raise they received back in May.
Combined with our work to create an engaging, healthy work environment, it is my hope that we can make the City of Columbia the employer of choice in our community.
And Mr. Seawood tells 93.9 The Eagle the pay raises are critical for recruitment and retention. His proposed budget will be introduced at Monday's Columbia City Council meeting. He also has a separate proposal about moving the homeless out of the Wabash Station to another location, and he's proposing building a new fire station in Southwest Columbia. The money for the budget is in there, along with money for 12 new firefighters. We'll have that angle of the story coming up at the bottom of the hour. And Columbia's Convention and Visitors Bureau is saying this morning there are few hotel rooms still left here in Columbia for this weekend. That is due to the thousands of visitors who are coming in for the Show Me State games. A lot of them are already in town. A few more will come back in tonight, and then some more tomorrow. Few hotel rooms left. CVB spokesperson Megan McConaughey is encouraging anyone looking for a hotel room to call 573-874-CITY. Mayor Barbara Buffalo.
So I encourage every Columbia resident and visitor to really put on that smile, welcome people to come here. Maybe be a little bit more patient at our stoplights, if there's a little bit more traffic, because that means those people are having a good experience here in Columbia, and we want them to keep coming back and to think fondly of us when they hear about the words Columbia, Missouri.
And the mayor has estimated the games will generate $7 to $18 million in economic impact here in Columbia between last and this weekend. News is brought to you by AirServe Heating and Air Conditioning, ensuring the air in which you live and breathe is comfortable and clean. For all of your cooling needs, log on to airserve.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:08. In sports, the Cardinals were off yesterday. No game there in St. Louis, so there's no game to recap. The Cardinals are opening up a series tonight at Washington. They'll take on the Washington Nationals, not the Senators anymore. They're no more. It is the Washington Nationals. First pitch, 6:05 at 93.9 The Eagle, your home for Cardinal baseball. Yankees in the Royals. I'll tell you what, folks, a lot of Cardinal fans may not know this name, but if you're a Royal fan, you know it. And imagine if this guy were pitching on the Yankees or if he were pitching on, I'll just say, the Toronto Blue Jays. This man would have 15 wins right now. His name is Brady Singer, the pitcher for the Royals. That's a fact. I mean, this guy struck out 10 Yankees last night and still lost the game. 7 scoreless innings. He gave up 1 hit. They couldn't get any hits going, and the Royals lose 1-0. Aaron Judge, a walk-off home run in the 9th inning to win it. In Game 2 of the series, 6:05 tonight. Just a very tough loss, but he continues to impress. That slider really confusing a lot of the Yankees, and those are some of the best hitters in baseball. Our sports is brought to you this hour by Missouri Heart Center, moheartcenter.com. Our news time, 6:09. All right, John, thank you. Weather brought to you by Club Car Wash. ClubCarWash.com, 64. 610, 93.9 The Eagle, 93.9theeagle.com. Local companies are looking for local people as our traffic is presented by MidmoHires.com. MoDOT saying the trail there in Roachport, near the Roachport Bridge, the trail, not the lanes, the trail will be closed on Monday due to some heavy work that will be going on, so be prepared for that. And again, if you're heading to St. Louis this morning, if you have to travel there, just be prepared that there are all sorts of problems again this morning due to the record flooding. Congresswoman Cori Bush calling on the governor to urge the president of the United States to issue a federal disaster declaration. That is getting a ton of news coverage in St. Louis, as you can imagine. She's saying it rises to that level. Cori Bush calling for that today because the flooding is in her district. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
So for fiscal year 2023, departments have identified projects with climate impacts. This will allow residents to read about projects helping us meet our climate goals and will support departments considering climate effects in their service lines.
Can I say I told you so?
It is too early for that. Come on, Steph.
But I will confirm you warned about that because you said it was going to impact small business.
I called that yesterday. So this is Stephanie Bell, and this is your Feel Good Friday edition of Wake Up Columbia. I am joined today by Brian Houseworth and producer Hannah, but also by a new co-host, Steve Spellman.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. We're so glad to have you. Well, let's get right into this.
Good morning, Steve.
Budget situation,
yes.
And then we'll talk to Steve a little bit more and welcome
Sure.
him to Wake Up. So what happened? What are the highlights yesterday? What are the surprises? And for those of you who weren't tuned in yesterday, I said, Brian suggested, hey, maybe there'll be some surprises. And I said, I don't really like surprises when it comes to my city budget. But I said, given who we know is on the council, given what we know about the mayor, will there be any climate change things? And it came up.
It did, absolutely. And I was, because they keep it so tight to the vest. I checked on the Wabash, which, by the way, that was a big deal. So that there were actually a couple surprises. But I said on air yesterday, I did not think there would be much discussion on climate change. And there really wasn't a lot of discussion about it, Stephanie and Steve, but it did come up. Basically, what the city manager, Mr. Seawood, said is that the budget is linked to the climate change adaptation plan. And he also said strategic plan, but really they're trying to look at climate change, things like that. That was maybe a sentence or two in the speech. I'll give you a couple of quick highlights and then maybe the biggest surprise. But obviously the pay is the biggest thing. If you had to pick one, because he said the city pay and the city employees are the city's top priority, that basically without them, the city can't do anything. So they got 3%, Steve and Stephanie, in May. He's looking at 4% across the board starting in September, actually October, if the proposal goes through. Then a 1%, basically, I forgot how he phrased it. I believe he called it a performance raise. Mm-hmm. Top performers, we get an additional 1% if they're approved by their supervisors in addition to that. So that was big. I thought the fire station in Southwest Columbia was a big deal. I'll have that story at the bottom of the hour. They're going to get 12 new firefighters for that. And I had to pull it out of Mr. Seawood. If you listen to the press conference, I had to pull it out of him and then talk to him afterwards. But I did confirm and everybody heard it because he didn't say this during the press conference, only until I asked him. His proposal, and I'll have this story on Monday because I need a little more time to put it together, they are not going to have the homeless anymore under his proposal at the Wabash station. And I think that's really huge. Now, ultimately, the council could overrule him on that or basically do what they want to do. But that is big. I thought that was significant. And the other thing that's probably worth a quick mention about the bus system. They're going to spend $200,000 studying the bus system.
Here we go again.
What?
Here we go
You're
again.
kidding me.
No.
Brian, are you trolling me
No.
at 6:14 on a Friday morning?
No, I went live with Gary Nolan yesterday, and boy, he really kind of went off on that. But no, Hannah, no trolling on that. $200,000 to study the bus system, and that'll be an outside consultant that does that study.
I don't know what's worse, the fact that we're doing another study or that it's about buses. It's both terrible. I mean, what's your reaction to that, Steve?
On the buses?
Yeah.
So, like I said, here we go again. The buses have been underperforming for a long time. We just don't have the demand. They've changed the routes a bunch of times. We're pretty much a car-centric community. We're pretty suburban. We're not St. Louis or New York City or London, where we got the density and demand for that. And they keep saying, well, if we just put more money into it, we just have more routes. Well, people aren't riding it. So really there's a couple core routes that seem to get ridership, but everything else isn't. So they really need to blow it up and start over. And there's other ideas of doing that, which we could maybe talk about later.
I asked someone once about riding the bus in Jefferson City, and they said, well, it is really clean because no one rides it.
Jeff Tran.
Yeah.
But Steve brings up a really powerful point about there are a lot of them that don't have hardly anyone on it. Now, I will say this. I live on, depending on when I'm home, I'm usually here, but when I am at home or driving on Clark Lane, I'm off of Clark Lane, that route seems to, and that's away from the core, but because it seems to have a lot of the fast food workers who are, and there's not very great sidewalks up and down Clark Lane. I do see that one used during the day quite a bit. It seems like it's heavily used. But you're right. There are a lot that just are not. You look at the buses and there's hardly anybody on them.
It seems like we could take that $200,000 and pull a Raising Cane's and buy Mega Millions tickets and and find something better to do. I mean,
literally anything else would be a better use of the money.
Right. Well, and Steve, you're like a low tax guy. I go back and forth on the city pay raise, and it feels, like a participation trophy when I'm excited to hear about this performance based, the 1%.
Yes, that's
but
good.
just throwing out across the board raises for government employees when they're competing with your small businesses for the same people. I mean, I struggle with that. What about you?
It's kind of a balance. We're seeing the most recent inflation numbers, about 9%. So the cost of living, at least by those official measures, is just 9%. I think it's more than that out there, but anyway. And to keep up a cost of living for any employees, is probably good. It's not beyond the rate of inflation. But really, we have to understand that public sector employers are competing for labor from the private sector, as you were saying, Stephanie. So they are big players in the labor market, whether it's MU, Mizzou Healthcare, Columbia Public Schools, City of Columbia, the county employees. They're major employers in Columbia, and that's not even to mention Jeff City. Some of our listeners there with state employers. Yes. So they've got to be competitive, like other employers. And, if it outpaces what private sector employers can afford to pay, well, that's a problem too. So it's a balance. It's nice to see a cost of living to really need to rethink that. It needs to be competitive wages. They need to, be competitive for, employees in the labor market.
Trash, you bring up those are really good points because, again, people will discuss that. I thought maybe they'd talk a little bit about trash or sanitation because that's been a problem trying to find trash. That did not come up.
Surprise.
But
that's a surprise.
Well,
I mean, really.
But one meeting without trash.
Yeah, exactly. But, it was the Columbia Missourian, it was Roger McKinney of the Columbia Tribune and me, and we all ask our angles and what we focus on probably a little bit different. I focused on the Wabash and the fire station, but really the pay and their questions were very important to them. I'm not necessarily. I can't even. I think they were talking more about some things they've written about. But to Carlin, I think if they had opened that up to the public, maybe people would have asked. But they were really focused on letting the reporters ask questions. So, and I'm always fine if they open up to the public because sometimes I've always said sometimes when they open up to the general public, they might ask something that I don't think of. Now, by the same token, they don't want to be in there for 2 hours answering questions.
2 hours would be light because city council meetings are known to go 4, 5, 6, and a lot of it is the public comment.
It is. It really is. I understand. I know. I think on State of the City, though, I believe I do believe they open up for questions from the public, and they sometimes they'll ask stuff that maybe I don't think about, and that's fine. And there were like 2 or 3 that asked questions,
Sure.
so that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and there will be more opportunities. This is, again, just the budget recommendation. It will have to go to the council,
Yes.
so there'll be plenty of opportunities for public input going forward. So we will be talking about that. I imagine that will come back up this morning. We've got some other exciting stuff coming up. We're going to talk with Mike Murphy at 7:10 from ComoBuz. He is really dialed in to this Tide City Council race and some of these other budgetary items. So I'm interested to hear what he has to say about what we heard yesterday on the budget. But first, Steve, I want to, this is your first time co-hosting Wake Up Columbia.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners are familiar with the pieces that you write in the Missourian. You recently wrote about the primary ballot, and we're gonna talk about that at 6:35 because you have some different opinions about the way that we vote and about the recent changes
that's cool.
that I think people will want to hear. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
A lifelong Columbia area Boone County resident, born and raised, went to Mizzou and stuck around, work in financial services, and so I kind of get to watch kind of economic matters and so forth. Personally, I've been kind of a conservative, liberty-oriented activist for a number of years. I've been a tax fighter. Was on here with Brandon last fall when we were talking about the parks tax. We were some of the very few counterpoint to more parks forever and other priorities, so that was good. Was a radio host on another station for a number of years, a public access opportunity. I retired from that in December after about 15 years, so it's good to be back on the radio here with you. And again, like you mentioned, I write a piece in an opinion piece every couple weeks in the Columbia Missourian. Kind of the lone conservative voice. That's kind of what they're looking for from me. And
the token conservative voice is that?
You can say that. No, it's they're looking for that angle. I think they're hungry for it. The editors are. So I appreciate them accommodating that. It's a good partnership. I enjoy it.
Well, yeah. Well, welcome into the studio. I know you and I have had a chance to bump into each other over the years, whether it's at Boone County Lincoln Days or at Show Me Institute events.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you, and we're
It
glad
is.
to have you
Appreciate
this
it.
morning. We are getting ready for your daily DC rundown. Anything good that's happened in the Biden administration has really started as a Trump policy or Trump idea that Biden reimagines his position on, and we've got another one for the list. Coming right up, you're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Hi, I am Brandon Rather. This might seem a little odd, but you know me by now, right? Okay, so you have a relationship with a family doctor. They take care of your body and all that good stuff. And now for about 4 or 5 years, I have had a relationship, my car has at least, with Gap's Automotive Repair Shop. And I'll tell you what's been key in that. So Gap's Automotive Repair Shop, they're in Columbia and they're in Booneville. Small local company. Usually it's the same mechanics, been there for a while. And that means it's the exact same mechanics that have been working on my car for several years now. That's important. I get it. You can go in, look on the computer. Oh, here's what we did last time. But I got to tell you, I like this idea that it's usually the same people that have continued to work on my car at Gap's Automotive Repair Shop. 140,000 miles, that thing runs smooth. I hope that you will consider starting a relationship with you, your vehicle, and Gap's Automotive Repair Shop in Columbia and in Booneville.
how you prevent these numbers from coming through is actually prosecuting and getting people returned to their home countries or prosecuted in our country.
That is Mayor Nichols down in Yuma, Arizona. That is getting us into our daily D.C. rundown. So the mayor there was talking about prosecuting folks, but Brandon likes to talk about how anything good that happened in the Biden administration basically was Trump's idea. So if you initially, when Biden first got in, he was like, we're going to roll out these vaccines really quickly. Well, of course, all of that was set in motion by the Trump administration, not really by Biden. Right. He likes to take credit for it. And then, during the campaign, he was so critical of Trump's border policies. But Fox is reporting that the Biden administration has now quietly approved a border wall near Yuma, Arizona.
Really? Yeah. I wonder why they quietly did it.
Right?
Weird.
And so there is, and so it was all basically done through the Homeland Security Secretary authorized this new plan, which actually was set in motion by the Trump administration because of so many of these border issues. Now, in one way, I'm kind of, angry because, they're saying, that they don't really care about the border. They haven't done anything thus far. But you have to give Biden some points because we have been talking for, 18 months. What are you going to do about the border? And I think this is the first big step.
Yeah, and there's talk of, helping domestic computer chip makers. That sounds kind of like America First, doesn't it?
I think
it
does.
A little like that?
I think it does. It's incredible how Biden can reevaluate his position on some of the Trump administration policies and then suddenly think maybe that would be a good idea for me, because everything that he's come up with his own, it either fails in Congress or it's been a disaster.
Well, comes up on his own. That's a tough statement.
Okay, that's a fair point. So beyond that, he did talk to China yesterday. I don't think anything was resolved. There was a phone call. China was not pleased about the rumors of recent conversations between Nancy and Taiwan, and really every time and really I think China spoke to Biden from a position of strength, and we didn't. I don't know that we got anything out of that conversation. So disappointing there, but I guess not unexpected. I'm also still really mad about my former friend, Joe Manchin, for falling down on the job on the reconciliation bill. We should talk about that more because that is a massive amount of spending, and I know it probably frustrates you as much as I feel frustrated today by that. Coming right up, we are that Daniel Boone team that we have been talking to. We have an update for you.
That weather check brought to you by Club Car Wash. Check them out online at clubcarwash.com and find the nearest location to you.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. There are people rescued, others unaccounted for, and at least 8 killed in flooding in eastern Kentucky. Michael Hahn in Breathitt says he got out fast when the water reached his house.
It was around the side of the house. Where we got out, it was coming up on the steps. I waded out knee-deep to get out.
Hundreds of homes have flood damage. The principal of Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, has her suspension lifted.
Principal Mandy Gutierrez was suspended Monday after a Texas House committee released a report on the mass shooting at the school. Gutierrez denied she'd been complacent about security and said so in a letter to the school superintendent, who wrote back, as a result of our review, you will be allowed to return to work.
That's Fox's Jill Nato. Dozens of Ukrainian prisoners of war are reported to have been killed in shelling at a prison in eastern Ukraine. It's unclear who did it. The Russian and Ukrainian militaries accuse each other. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:31, and we have a beautiful morning here in mid-Missouri. Gorgeous sunrise. 63 is our current temperature. We're going to see a high today of around 81 degrees. We're going to try to dry out here. Hopefully the St. Louis area can dry out as well. All sorts of problems again in the St. Louis area with massive flooding going on there. More on that in just a moment. I'm Brian Houseworth. Good morning, and here are some of the stories we're working on for you this hour. A St. Louis congresswoman is asking Missouri's governor to request a federal disaster declaration from President Biden. This is after massive flooding in the St. Louis region for the second time in 3 days. It was so bad you could barely see some of the tractor trailers except from the door on up as they were caught in some of the floodwaters. These were on interstates. We're not talking about side roads here. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch reports the city's central corridor and northwest side drenched. Interstates closed all throughout the St. Louis region. Dozens of people had to be rescued from vehicles as well. And Congresswoman Bush also is calling on the governor to urge FEMA to get there on the ground. She also says the Missouri National Guard needs to be activated, that they need help, according to her, to help rescue people and evacuate people in St. Louis. The governor is in Germany right now on a trade mission. Mike Kehoe is the acting governor, and he has already declared a disaster, a state of emergency with the disaster. Break Time Convenience Stores is saying if you bought gas in California or 3 Break Time stores in Jeff City, pay attention to your vehicle. If it's acting poorly, you need to call Break Time immediately. And thousands of visitors in Columbia today, tomorrow, and Sunday. Final weekend Show Me State games. 40,000 visitors this and last weekend combined. In our news, by the way, brought to you by MidAmericaMortgage.us. Apply now for a loan on your dream home. Turning our attention now to sports. We're going to start with Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone softball, very impressive. And I rely, folks, quite frankly, I rely on their Twitter page sometimes to find out what the scores are because, unfortunately, I don't get a chance to see a lot of the games. But they did not post anything, so I thought maybe the game was delayed, maybe some issues with rain. But Stephanie Bell informs me that they won, and we're working to get a score right now on that. So, Marissa or anybody out there, if you've got a score, let us know and who they played today. We'll definitely update that for our listeners. But congratulations to Daniel Boone. They've been impressive. 3 wins in a row, 3-0 so far in the series. Cardinal baseball. The Cardinals were off yesterday, taking on the Washington Nationals tonight, and that will be a tough series. That game will be in Washington. 6:05, first pitch right here on 93.9. The Eagle and the Yankees and the Royals. Boy, what a tough loss last night for Mike Matheny and the Royals. This pitcher, young guy, Brady Singer, 6'5" for the Royals. 10 strikeouts last night, gives up 1 hit, and the Royals still lose the game as Judge hits a walk-off homer in the 9th inning. Sports brought to you by Lacrosse Lumber, Grindstone, Columbia at 634. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to find a job or post your job opening today. Worth reiterating again, if you're heading to the St. Louis area, just obviously be very careful. If you don't have to go, I would avoid it if at all possible. There's still problems there. There's still problems from the other day, and Congresswoman Bush says they need the National Guard to be activated to get in there to help evacuate residents who are apparently stranded in some of their homes, primarily in the that would be North St. Louis primarily, but her district goes well into North County. So be careful if you have to go to St. Louis. Give yourself a lot of extra time with those problems. Here locally, no major problems to report. 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Stephanie in for Brandon Rathert. I'm joined by co-host Steve Spellman, and we have Marissa Hagler on the phone. She has a daughter on that Daniel Boone team. She's a regular listener of Wake Up Columbia and has been keeping us updated. The fact that you can turn your TV to ESPN Plus and watch, I'm going to get the ages wrong, I think 11 and 12-year-olds on ESPN.
12 and 13.
13. Okay, 12.
Marissa with the fact check.
Yes, 12 and 13-year-olds from right here in Boone County really is incredible. So what happened yesterday and what do we need to be watching for next?
Oh, my gosh. These girls have been electric. It has been absolutely amazing. We have outscored our opponents this week. I think it's 32-2, something like that. Wow. Yesterday they played Ohio. It was gave the girls a little bit more of a tougher run. They won that game 5-2. So that put us, we've won every game this week, and that put us in the championship game today, which will be at 1 o'clock Central Time on ESPN+.
Great.
So it's been awesome.
That is awesome. And so if they win the championship, this is for kind of the central region, that sends them then to the Little League World Series?
That's correct. If they win this game today, it's for all the marbles today at 1 o'clock. If they win that, they win the Central Region Championship, that consists of 9 states. And then they will go and play in the Little League World Series with all the other champions from around the United States as well as international champions. And that'll be in Greenville, North Carolina.
That is just incredible. Well, thank you so much, Marissa, for calling in and giving us an update. Brian has one more question.
Yeah.
We'll be watching the 1 o'clock ESPN today. You can see
12-year-olds.
ESPN Plus. All right.
Yeah, Marissa, Brian here. Thank you for calling that in, and we appreciate it. Who is the opponent today in the championship game? Do you know?
Well, see, we're lucky because we have Ohio and Indiana that are playing the game before us.
Ah, okay.
And whoever is the winner of that game plays us. So we're going to be fresh, and they're going to have played a game right before us.
That's a good point. So, yeah, that's very interesting. Your team won one game 17-0, so 32-2 in 3 games. That's great. And again, thank you for that information. Keep us posted, and we'll keep mentioning it on the newscast, too. I appreciate your information.
I will. Thank you guys so much for having me on this morning.
Thanks. 17-0. Is there like a mercy rule or something?
Blowout. That was against it. That was the game, I guess, before this one. Because it was the second game of the 3 games this week. And that was a really good team. Their record, I want to say it was like 25-0. They were from Iowa. And these very impressive young people.
Really? Columbia kids are a steamroller out there. Yeah.
Well, and with all the we talked about the high school baseball championships that Mid-Mo pulled in this year. I mean, we're becoming kind of the place for baseball and softball. I think Mid-Missouri is. It's really exciting. So, Steve, I want to get into the Senate race. Obviously, we're now 4 days away. I feel like I should have a big ticker behind me where I get to like pull off a number or roll over a counter every day. So 4 days, and I say behind me, for those of you listening, you can actually watch Wake Up Columbia. We're on YouTube and on Facebook, and you can, Steve can wave to the camera.
Webcam deal here. Yeah.
There we go. But the Senate race is just days away. I've been carrying around that same piece of paper that you
sample
have.
Ballot from the county
sample
clerk there.
ballot.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for, but do you know who you're voting for in the Senate race?
I do, and I was pretty well decided early on when people were announcing. I'll just say it is controversial. I'm glad you put it that way and don't put on the spot. I won't put you on the spot either because there's 21 candidates. If you get your sample ballot that a lot of people got in the mail or whatever from the county clerk recently, shows you what the primary ballot for August 2nd, next Tuesday, is going to be. For U.S. Senate on the Republican side, there's 21 names. I don't know how the average voter is supposed to differentiate between that. There's basically 5 front runners based on the polling.
Sure.
There's 6 total that I know from Adam. They say there's 3 front runners and 2 others. I don't know polling. Vote who you think would be best. But I don't know how you're supposed to sort those out. You were saying that it's been mentioned there's 3 Erics, and sure enough, there is. There's 2 Erics that are front runners.
Big Eric and Little Eric, according to Congressman Long, right?
But because we've never heard of the other Eric, what's his adjective, right?
Eric
there's
McElroy, yeah.
People I've never heard of on the ballot.
Yeah, it's hard for a lot of the others to make a lot of traction and so forth. But, asking, who you're going to vote for among conservative circles can be controversial.
It can be.
And one example I'll give, I'll say who I'm for, but, a lot of support for Vicki Hartzler here locally. She's been the congresswoman from our area for a long time. A lot of support. And so if somebody has another Senate candidate that they might pull for their preference, it can be kind of uncomfortable to talk about. Because why are you for them? What are you doing? And then, of course, there's Eric Greitens thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know of a lot of Eric Greitens supporters that are active in that. I was traveling through southern Missouri on vacation, which we can maybe talk about later, but that was the only place I saw several Eric Greitens signs prominently.
I haven't seen hardly any, so you're saying
I've been around here, but that's I saw a few through there, so I don't know for what that's worth. There was one small town in the Ozarks where there were like 12 McCloskey signs. like bunched together along a highway. I guess there was somebody that's rah-rah McClaskey and
in that area.
Wanted to put that. I didn't see many others, but.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about the ballot and, and about it being uncomfortable, because for me, where it got a little uncomfortable was in the fourth before Sarah Walsh dropped out, because we had two candidates right here in Mid-Mo that a lot of people knew. We had
Sarah and then Taylor Burks.
Exactly. And so when when you were talking to folks, it did get a little bit uncomfortable, and I think people like them both. I think they both have a good record of good conservative values, and so it was uncomfortable. I think with respect to the ballot, you said, and I think this was in your Missourian piece recently, that you would be in support of ranked choice voting, and I know that gets a lot of people fired up.
Yeah, it would be one solution for this. There's 21 candidates, 5 front runners based upon the polling, 6 that I know from Adam. What if you were able to go in and say, well, this is really my first choice, that's my second, and kind of on down the line. Some people, I'm not saying you should do this, but some people want to actively vote against Eric Greitens for whatever reason. There's these ads you get in the mail. He's, the guy's mugshot and, scandal type, snarky stuff. But, if you had the opportunity, me as a voter, I don't want to go into the polling place and play voter calculus. Well, I like this person, but do they have the best chance? Or am I wasting my vote? Or I kind of want to favor this over this one. And especially in a multi-candidate field, being able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down the line, that would make me most comfortable as a voter. And there's ways of doing this. But for party primaries like this, a multi-candidate field, and then also an idea along those lines for nonpartisan local races. So city council, like mayor, sometimes we'll have multiple candidates. You only get one vote. Well, I kind of favor this person, then miss this one second, and I really want to disfavor this other one. Like, this is my worst one. And you can rank them that way, and the system can go through that. And I think that's reasonable. You get into like presidential elections or like the November thing. Yeah, there's different things with third parties, but for party primaries like this, you got 21 people running for Senate. You'd be able to rank choice that way as a voter. I would appreciate that, as well as the nonpartisan local races, city council and school board, which is another thing.
Well, and that proposal actually got pretty close. They were out there, they're collecting signatures, and I think they came out recently and said, even though the deadline for the certification hasn't officially been certified or not certified, I think they've come out publicly and said, you know what, we're not going to make the signature count. So Missourians won't be voting on ranked choice this year. They could, but I suspect if they got that close this year, that we'll see something again coming up in the next election cycle. I think for me, you mentioned having it at the city level, and I think we had Dave Rowland, who our listeners are familiar with, in talking about ranked choice. He's a big supporter of ranked choice, and I think he kind of pointed to some other places that have ranked choice. And my understanding is where it is used now, it is used kind of at a city level, at a smaller level, and it's not really used. Ranked choice isn't really used on a statewide level, which I think is what gave me some reservations. What do you say to folks who say, well, ranked choice gives us the rhinos, in that it tends to push the field more toward the middle, and it will produce more moderate candidates as opposed to true conservatives?
I would, the chips are going to fall where they may, I would say. But again, as a voter, I don't want to go in the voting booth and say, well, I like this person, but I don't think they have a chance. I'd like to kind of actively vote against that person, and so forth. Any system is going to have trade-offs, and it's going to have other things. There's criticisms of this idea that it may be more extreme candidates will come out. So, well, I'm going to put in. Well, they'll probably get weeded out, but will it attract more of those? Because, hey, maybe I have a shot at getting some votes and so forth. Any system's going to have its trade-offs. But again, I don't want to go in and play voter calculus in the voting booth and have to strategize about who do I like, that I feel like has the best chance, and I'm not watering down my vote for who ends up being the most viable candidate. So
that's fair. Well, while we have you in studio, we talked to Representative Rice yesterday about the election law changes that the legislature passed this last year. And I know you've been involved in caucusing in the past, and that's one thing that came up. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear about your experience in the caucusing and and let's look beyond next Tuesday. Hannah and I are experiencing a little bit of primary fatigue right now, and let's start talking about what our elections are going to look like in the future.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Brendan Rathert for Salter Lawn Service. You know, Salter, one call does it all. Yeah, one call does it all, including concrete work. Recently was hanging out in Ashland. They did some work at a daycare, lovely daycare in Ashland. And Salter called and said, hey, you need to come see us do some concrete work because, you know, this concrete stuff for Salter Lawn Service, it's not just kind of a side thing like We've got some laser focus on this. So I went out there and I hung out with the guys and I watched them take like nothing and I watched them turn it into like this really nice smooth driveway, and they fixed up the back play area for the kids. And now, man, the kids are loving it, and the folks that pull up have this nice concrete driveway that the folks at Salter Lawn Service did. That's why we say Salter, one call does it all. That includes concrete work. Check them out. Salter Lawn Service. Salter, one call does it all.
This is your Feel Good Friday edition of Wake Up Columbia, and we are all wearing red, including our guest co-host, Steve Spellman.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Hannah, why do we wear red?
We wear red to remember everyone deployed, and I'm glad that you were in charge of telling Steve to wear red instead of Brandon, because he's definitely invited guests into the studio before on a Red Friday and forgotten to mention to them to wear red. So I'm glad.
It's the Eagle uniform on Fridays, I understand.
It is. Well, we're so glad you're joining us today, and you have some really interesting experience. So yesterday, Representative Reich was talking about the piece of legislation on elections, the omnibus bill that passed in the legislature. It doesn't change anything for the election Tuesday. It does start to change things for the election in November. We will have 2-week no excuse absentee in November. And then it changes the process as we go forward a little bit. And one big change is it really brings back the importance of caucusing, right?
Yeah, we could be shifting to that. And that's really interesting. And, it's interesting you mentioned Cherie. I've known her for a long time. I was a treasurer when she ran for a county office years ago. Cherie's a go-getter. And when Cherie says something, it's like, that has weight to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's trustworthy. You mentioned Dave Rowland earlier, constitutional lawyer. When he says something, that means something to me. But so caucus, Iowa caucuses have been a thing, but otherwise, we don't see that. In Missouri, we don't have a lot of experience. But due to some interesting timing and so forth, in 2012, I guess it was, Missouri did a caucus for the presidential elections, a primary process. And I participated in that. I was kind of an activist, and I was in with the Ron Paul group.
Okay.
For what it's worth. People like that or not. It's cool. But anyway, I remember that they did it on the county level, as memory serves. I think you had experiences too, another county. But we went to Kemper Arena, which is on North Range line. I think it's something else in that building now. But kind of our group kind of got together, and there was they elected a chair, and there was kind of what delegates are you going to select from Boone County to go to the congressional meeting, which was in Sedalia at that time, at just a few weeks later or something like that. And there was a lot of discussion and debate, and you had these teams, and they would come up with a slate of delegates, so individual people that were there from Boone County who preferred their candidate, and that group we were going to send on as Boone County Republicans to the congressional meeting. And it kind of went on to state and Springfield, I think it was at that point. And then that went to the national convention and all that stuff. So interesting process, very different than just showing up and voting. It wasn't just a few minutes. It was a good part of the day, as I remember. There was a lot of discussion, side discussions, and some of the leadership of some of the different candidate boosters would kind of do side deals and come up with their own group. And somebody from another group was like, well, wait, what is that? And, well, here's the thing. And, oh, wait, do I vote for that or this one? And it's a different animal, I would say.
But it was fun. I mean, I remember
yeah, it's very engaging.
Yeah, I remember it being really fun. And I think Representative Reich's point was, people come in and they vote in that presidential preference primary, and they think they're picking the candidate. And she said, no, actually, it's a giant waste of money, because typically the parties will follow what that vote is. But ultimately, the parties do decide. Yeah. And here we will decide, but we're just eliminating. So you will not go early on and go into the ballot box and vote in the presidential primary. We will use the caucus process going forward to pick that candidate. And I think, so I guess, do you think that's a better process? Or, having people actively engaged in the caucusing?
It's different. I don't know if it's better overall. But that point by Cherie that, when you do a presidential primary in, August of 2024 is going to be the next one. And whoever's on there, whoever you vote for and whoever gets the most votes in Missouri, that goes to the party. And then they kind of decide anyway. So it is a glorified poll of sorts. It's not a binding primary. This is a function of the specific political parties and who they're going to put on for their spot on the November ballot, which everybody votes conventionally. So
well, and I think one of the more interesting questions too is once I think it's 2023, the poll workers are going to actually ask you, are you affiliated with a party? Now and you can say, I am a Republican, I am a Democrat. If you don't say it, it's not unidentified anyway. It's unaffiliated, maybe, is what they mark you if you don't want to say. But there is some discussion about whether or not the parties, when they're determining who can participate in the caucus, if they could then look at that list. And for instance, if I had previously identified myself as a Democrat, maybe I wouldn't be allowed to participate in the primary. And so I think that's where, on a day-to-day basis, individuals are really, because, if I show up to the polls and they're like, what party are you? I've never had to do that before. They do ask me what ballot I want, but I don't have to designate a party. And I think that's a big change for Missourians.
It's a little stronger statement. One advantage of a caucus is, we get all these political ads, you got this one with Greitens and a mugshot and all that. That's not convincing me. Decided already. But I got all this money and effort, fighting Republicans. And if you get a caucus, you get the engaged, informed people that are committed to this process putting in and who we're going to put on the ballot for November. So there are benefits to a caucus system.
Steve Spellman on caucuses. I like it. We are going to be talking to Mike Murphy at 7:10. We are going to dig back into that Columbia budget recommendation by the city manager. You are listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Brittany Griner's supporters might like hearing this. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Russia's foreign minister said today he's open to talks with the U.S. on a possible prisoner swap to free the American basketball star.
The Biden administration had proposed a deal with Russia that could bring Griner home, along with Paul Whelan, another jailed American who was sentenced to 16 years in a Russian prison on espionage charges in 2020.
That's Fox's Tanya J. Powers. There's talk of a possible swap with Victor Boot, who was a convicted Russian weapons dealer. An appeals court in Ukraine has reduced the sentence of a Russian soldier convicted in the first war crimes trial from life to 15 years because he confessed to killing a Ukrainian civilian shortly after Russia's invasion began, and he also showed remorse and was following orders. People remain unaccounted for in flooded areas of Kentucky. At least 8 others have died.
Worst, most devastating flooding events in Kentucky's history.
Governor Andy Beshear, hundreds have been forced from flooded houses. Some watched them float away.
This morning, we're keeping an eye on Jackson, Kentucky. That's because just upstream from them, there is a dam that has been compromised a little bit and it could possibly break through, and that puts about 100 additional homes, a school, and a hospital at risk.
Fox Weather's Will Nunley in hazard. There's also been deadly flooding around St. Louis, Missouri, and heavy rain also flooded parts of the Las Vegas Strip with water pouring into a few casinos. Another bus of migrants who came to the U.S. illegally arrived in Washington this morning from Texas. Republican Governor Greg Abbott, angry over a border surge he blames on Biden policies, has sent thousands of migrants to D.C. Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser is requesting help from the National Guard.
As long as we need the Guard to deal with the humanitarian crisis that we expect to escalate.
A mega jackpot is worth even more millions tonight. It's risen to $1.1 billion, third largest U.S. lottery prize ever. America's listening to Fox News.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
And now a small business setback. Set to smooth jazz.
It's late. You're driving in the rain with only one thing on your mind. The deer about to total your HVAC van. But with Progressive's 30-plus customizable coverage options, you're covered. The rest is just saxophone.
When running your small business gets rough, Progressive Commercial is there to smooth it out. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Twinkly sound.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage and discounts not available for all vehicles or states. Policy terms and conditions apply.
.93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:03, 64 degrees, sunny skies right now in Columbia. Going to be a beautiful day today. Will dry out. No rain in the forecast tonight. Cloudy with a low near 63 degrees. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. Here are some of the stories we are working on for you in this 7 o'clock hour. We begin with the massive flooding that continues this morning in St. Louis and that region, hit hard by severe flooding for the second time, and historic flooding at that, second time in less than 3 days. St. Louis Congresswoman Cori Bush is urging Governor Parson to deploy the National Guard to St. Louis to assist residents with evacuation. She tweeted that overnight. Democratic Congresswoman Cori Bush also wants the governor to urge FEMA to get on the ground in St. Louis and to request a federal disaster declaration from President Biden. Now, the governor himself is in Germany. He is on a trade mission. He doesn't get back to Missouri until sometime tomorrow, probably in the evening. He's been on that trade mission meeting with companies that are based here in Missouri like Bayer. But we do have an acting governor, Mike Kehoe, who has issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency, and that state of emergency continues for the entire state. Record flooding in the St. Louis region. Most of the interstates, many of them, closed yesterday due to the flooding, and Congresswoman Bush again wants to see a federal disaster declaration from the President of the United States. Meantime, Break Time Convenience Stores is urging anyone who has purchased gasoline at the California gas station or 3 break times in Jefferson City to pay close attention to your vehicle to make sure it is running correctly. Now, they're not releasing a lot of details in a Facebook post, but they do say this. They say the Truman Boulevard location in Jeff City has now reopened and is back in business. And they also say if you bought gas at the break time in Tipton and the 2 spots in Sedalia, the truck stop and Broadway, your fuel is fine. However, they are not saying that about the other 3 stores in Jeff City, nor the California location. There's a number. If your car is not running correctly, you need to call break time, 1-800-876-6357. According to their Facebook post, the problem involves fuel delivery with their primary carrier, Midland. They don't elaborate on what this problem is, according to their Facebook post. Again, Break Time Convenience Stores, part of MFA. They're based right here in Columbia. Missouri's longtime securities commissioner will be retiring effective Monday.
Minnick was appointed Secretary of State by Jay Ashcroft on January 7, 2017. Ashcroft praised Minnick for leading a team of dedicated professionals through market turbulence, financial innovation, and a global pandemic, noting that the office was always fully functioning and serving Missouri citizens. I'm Rachel Romney, Zimmer News Network.
All right, Rachel, thank you. The $506 million budget that was proposed yesterday by Columbia City Manager DeCarlin Seawood is tied to the city's strategic plan. It is also tied to the city's climate action adaptation plan. Mr. Seawood outlined his proposals during a budget address at City Hall.
So for fiscal year 2023, departments have identified projects with climate impacts. This will allow residents to read about projects helping us meet our climate goals and support departments considering climate effects in their service lines.
His proposed budget also includes funding for new fire station near Scott Boulevard in Southwest Columbia. 12 new firefighters there as well. Columbia's Convention and Visitors Bureau says there are a few hotel rooms left this weekend due to thousands of visitors traveling here for the Show Me State games. CVB's Megan McConaughey is encouraging anyone looking for a hotel room to call 573-874-CITY. Mayor Barbara Buffalo tells 93.9 The Eagle the Show Me State games visitors bring economic and cultural benefits. She wants everybody to be friendly and to welcome all the visitors here. She notes these games generate $7 to $18 million in economic impact here between last and this weekend. Lots of money coming in on sales taxes, as the mayor points out, that will go back into infrastructure as well as public safety here in Columbia. And we could see a new roundabout at some point near Highway 54 in Holt Summit. The Fulton Sun is reporting the Holt Summit Board of Aldermen discussed the issue earlier this week with MoDOT. Our news is brought to you in the 7 o'clock hour by the Candy Factory. They're in downtown Columbia, and they make their chocolate-covered strawberries fresh every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, year-round. TheCandyFactoryOnline.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 7:07. In sports, congratulations to Daniel Boone in the softball game, and what a week they have had. 3 games in a row, 3 big wins. They've outscored their opponents 32-2 yesterday, as Marissa pointed out in our live interview. Hagler down there in the Ashland area, they've won their game over Ohio 5-2. Congratulations, they're 5-2, and they will play in the championship round. Central State's region today at 1 o'clock. It's unclear who the opponent is because 2 teams have to play for the right to play the team at basically Daniel Boone. So it's either going to be Indiana or Michigan. Whoever wins that advances to the Little League World Series. So congratulations to our Daniel Boone softball players, playing very impressive. They'll play again today. This one is for all the marbles. Yadier Molina, playing yesterday, got hit by a pitch. That did not look good. Hit by a pitch, had to be taken out of the game on rehab, and got hit, looked like in the arm on a pitch. Just got away from the pitcher, and no issues there whatsoever. But he definitely had to step out of that game after that. He also hit a pothole, according to news reports, driving back to St. Louis. Yadier Molina hit a pothole on the highway driving from Memphis to St. Louis. Cardinals and the Nationals, 6:05 tonight, 93.9 The Eagle, 7:09. John, thank you. Great work on television this morning with Megan. Sports and weather brought to you by Tiger Towing, 449-3754, tigertowing.com. Sunny 65. Traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. Midmohires.com. Find a job or post your job opening today. Roads pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. A quick reminder for if anyone having to travel to St. Louis, truckers especially, be very careful over there. A lot of the water has receded, but all sorts of problems still going on in the St. Louis area. Congressman Cori Bush calling on Missouri's governor to get the National Guard activated to help residents with evacuation in the St. Louis region. She also is urging him to tell FEMA to get on the ground in St. Louis. And again, he can request that. He can't tell them what to do, but he can request that. We'll keep you posted on that. 7:10, I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Stephanie Bell. We are celebrating a Feel Good Friday here on Wake Up Columbia. You can post on Facebook. There's a post already out there that producer Hannah put up. If you're feeling good about something, let us know. You can also text us at 874-9390. Let us know. I mean, I'm feeling good about the weather. I don't know about you all. It's finally cooled off.
It's nice.
And finally we went from a record drought to record flooding. So this week, we've been really fortunate here in our little bubble because we really barely missed. If you look at the map, we missed a lot of the stuff. We got the rain we needed, but it'll be nice to have a little dry time too.
Agree. One thing I am not feeling good about is $200,000 spent on a bus study. So big day in Columbia yesterday.
Yeah.
The city manager released his recommendation with respect to the budget. Brian gave us a quick rundown earlier, but basically there's some across-the-board pay increases, 4% for city employees. There might be some performance-based increases.
1%.
You've got a new fire station. You've got a $200,000 bus study. And you found something. The biggest surprise was the homeless situation.
Yeah, and I that was not actually in his address. It was briefly referenced, but I had to pull that out of Mr. Seawood at the podium during his press conference, where everybody in the audience heard it, and then I talked to him afterwards and confirmed it with him. But he is recommending, and it's a proposed budget, as Steve, you know, it'll go to the council, be introduced on Monday. It will be tweaked. It could be amended. But his proposal is to not house the homeless at the Wabash anymore. That is a very big issue. It's a sensitive issue because we've got business owners who've openly told us on the record, the gentleman from the Orr Street Farmers Market, Mr. Dudek, he said his customers are being harassed, that they're being cursed at, guys on methamphetamines or trash in his market. I mean, he said that openly. And DeCarlin's aware. He listens to our station, and we've reported. Nikki Davis says there's all sorts of problems. By the way, those people are very clear. The business owners, they still want the homeless to be helped, but they think that's not a good location. So Seawood's budget is putting money, and they're still tweaking details to get them the services they need at a different location, and that location has not been determined. But under his proposal, it would not be the Wabash anymore. That's a big deal.
That really is a big shift. I want to bring in Mike Murphy from ComoBuz. He has been following not only the city and keeping a real close eye on what they're up to, but also the city council race that is going to be decided next week, finally.
Yes, it is.
Mike, welcome into the show.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
What was your initial reaction after hearing the recommendation yesterday?
Well, I didn't have too much of a reaction. I thought it was unsurprising. My basic reaction was if your assignment was to write a 1,200-word address without saying anything that might annoy anybody or get anybody upset, this would be a pretty good prototype of that address. It was very positive, very business as usual. I think there's some surprises in there for people who are paying very close attention, but and some disappointments. But by and large, I think it was pretty much business as usual.
What was there anything in there that was disappointing, I guess, to you? You're watching pretty closely.
Well, so what has been going on inside City Hall for months is utility rate increases. And I've said in meetings where staff and also the public commissions, the volunteer commissions who oversee these things, are working on letters and memos in the strongest possible words. And we had a water and light representative go in front of council a month ago and basically beg and scold them to begin implementing and budgeting increases to utilities to keep the utility funds solvent. Well, they're all going to be quite shocked to find out this budget only has an increase in water rates, and they have to do that because they want to sell bonds again this year, at the end of this year, for ongoing improvements that were approved in 2018 and needed. So they have to implement, and it's about a 9.5% increase in water. But they have recommendations for increases in the neighborhood of 15-16% in solid waste and in sewer, and also coming in electric. And it wasn't addressed yesterday by Mr. Seawood, but it is buried in the budget that they're going to relook at that in December or January, which is telling me that they know they got to do it. They're keeping it out of the budget. They're going to do it shortly after the budget approved, which I think is pretty disingenuous, and I think a lot of people will be kind of upset by that. But I think it's their way of how they're going to smooth this out to the public the best they can.
Yeah, Mike, Brian here. I appreciate you always joining us here live on Wake Up Columbia. Appreciate the great coverage you provide at ComoBuz, the work you do, especially covering the city. My point, and I'd love your take on this, Roger McKinney from the Columbia Tribune, and there was the name escapes, a young man from the Missouri, and I haven't seen him before, young reporter, and myself, and we all focus on different things. They had some very good questions about some articles they've written and things they focused on. I ask about the Wabash, and I ask about the fire station. I do think that fire station is a big deal because they need to get 12 new firefighters. The money is there. But sometimes at these meetings, Mike, they open the microphone to the public where the public can also ask questions. And sometimes I get some really good stories out of that. No one raised their hand to do that. They would have been given the opportunity yesterday to do that. I thought, and that place was packed. Are you surprised no one raised their hand from the public to ask him a question? Because I was expecting that.
Here's what I think about that is that the address was so general and so nonspecific and so non-controversial that until you actually get the budget document, which is 584 pages, by the way, until you actually start seeing what's in it, and which City Council has a Saturday work session on August 13th, I believe.
Yep, 9 o'clock
really
in the morning.
Start diving into it, yeah. Unless you, I was sitting there thinking, what would somebody ask? You would have to ask something that you knew other than what was in the address, I think. So, I think it was just really kind of very public relation-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, this is Steve. Again, appreciate your work. You're kind of indicating there isn't a lot of transparency talk from the city manager's discussion. Would the term smoke screen, is that an exaggeration in your opinion? Or
maybe slightly. I'd like to say right after he says we want to be very transparent and involve the citizens, then he begins obfuscating about what's in there. So yeah, I think so. The questions that I would have had was, so number one, I think that he said that they're not going to use any of their fund balance, that their expenditures are actually going to be less than revenues. I think they got really high revenue projections, but that's not for me to decide. But that's something that people are going to be interested in. I think people paying attention. We got $50 million in a fund balance, and we need $25 million for our accounting standards. And I think there was some belief that he was going to dip into that to fund some things, and that's not in his budget. So, but now there are some really good things in there. Well, depending on your point of view, public safety. I think one of the things that we were looking to see where DeCarlin would be coming from on public safety is he going to grow the police department or not? And but based on this budget, he clearly is interested in funding police. He's got 9 new FTEs and some community service aides and some upper staff positions. So I think people who want to see that happen will be happy. I think on the other end of that, though, there are people who think some of that money should be instead going to health and human services and community development. So I think that'll be a essential debate. Probably the biggest debate over this budget when it gets to council.
Yeah, the one you're absolutely right. And the one point to make for people who thought DeCarlin Seawood was going to come in and defund the police department isn't going to happen. He is very clear that public safety is a top priority for him, and he told me that he said that. In fact, he wants 3 new officers for the airport too. That's huge. I mean, public safety is a huge part of that budget.
Good.
We are talking to Mike Murphy of ComoBuz.com. That's ComoBuz with 1 Z. But I saw an article you recently posted about the tie-breaking election. So we had, I think it was 1,102 votes in April. We had 2 candidates tie right on the nose, and now that we're basically having a revote, and the headline for the article says plenty of drama consequence in Ward 3. What do we know about that race, and what are you expecting to see on Tuesday?
I have no idea what's going to happen on Tuesday. It would be highly curious. The drama is simply the people that are running. Carl Scala has been a councilman for 4 terms. I think he's the he's become, unfortunately for him, like the poster child of throw the bums out. I think you have a certain shelf life as a council person, and he's probably reached it. He decided to run again. He's a 75-year-old former Marine, MU professor, a conservative now on the council, even though he was always regarded as a progressive. Yeah,
for a hard left individual.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And then his opponent is somebody who he didn't think should run even. 38-year-old Roy Lovelady, black, gay, a famous drag queen. We kind of drag that stuff out and talk about it. No judgment passed, just very interesting. And when people, you put those two together, get them talking about where they're coming from. Carl's a big supporter of the police. His daughter's a cop, or a retired cop. He's making it clear that he's a big backer of the blue, where Roy's talking about, getting beat up in a parking lot here in Columbia when he was a younger man, and he wants more accountability out of the police department. So that's quite stark. That's quite a differences in choices for the voters out in Ward 3. It'll be curious to see what they do.
I am curious as well. We've had both of them have been on the program, I believe, and I really enjoyed our interview with Mr. Lovelady. But I think all eyes in Columbia are going to be on that race because it really is a big deal, and I think the council, has shifted quite to the left already. Obviously, I think if we do elect Lovelady, we'd be shifting even more to the left, and it does impact things. I mean, Brian kind of chuckled yesterday when I mentioned climate change in the budget, but it did come up, and I don't think, given a different council, I don't think that things like that would be coming up in a budget discussion. Mike Murphy, it's always so good to talk with you. If you want to check out this Plenty of Drama article, you can go to ComoBuz.com. But we appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, God bless you, Mike.
All right, thank you guys.
Coming up next, we are going to find out what's hot with Hannah. What you got for us today, Hannah?
There's some fast food restaurants I really like. I'm not sure I like him as much as this guy that we're going to talk about.
Oh, all right, you're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Atterbury Auction and Realty, they're taking the next step. They are part of the team that is changing the game with auctions with their latest online auction. You got to check out this one. This is in Sedalia. And a couple of cool things. Number one, an extensive firearm and ammunition collection. Also some low-hour Mahindra tractor, Kawasaki mule, things like that. And here's the one that I think this had people talking. This has to do with Indian artifacts from the archaic period. And here's the best thing. You can see this, by the way, AtterburySells.com, AtterburySells.com, an extensive arrowhead collection. And this is what's cool. This has all been found on this property in Sedalia. In other words, it's not like somebody went and bought a bunch of stuff in the Southwest or wherever and said, oh, look at all these cool things. Found right here in Missouri. So check it out. Atterbury Auction and Realty Company, AtterburySells.com, AtterburySells.com. Oh, and tell them Brandon Rathert sent you.
It's 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:28.
Oh,
Steph,
sorry.
I'm disappointed. You're
Ish.
pulling a Rathert.
I know.
Yeah, ish. So there's a lot of, like fast food restaurants that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I enjoy any of them as much as this Colorado man who got a 12 by 12 inch Subway tattoo plastered on his back.
Ooh.
And it earned him a lifetime supply of free Subway sandwiches.
I mean, I think there are a lot of people who would get a Chick-fil-A tattoo for a lifetime supply of Chick-fil-A.
But 12 by 12 inches, that's huge. It covers, it goes from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. It's huge.
I hope you're posting a picture of this on our Facebook page.
I will.
I hope they never change their corporate logo. It's pretty permanent.
Subway was hosting a big event in Vegas, and they were offering Subway tattoos to 9 people. They had 9 to give out. And depending on the size of the tattoo you committed to, that determined how long you got free subs for. And this guy took the grand prize home with his giant tattoo with Subway for life.
What kind of society?
Right?
Awful. Well, good news. Steve tells me he saw gas for under $4, Hannah, to follow up on your What's Hot from yesterday. So we're excited about that. Coming right up, we are going to be covering, again, the city budget. And let's talk 2024 DeSantis.
Okay.
Stop by Club Car Wash to get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details at clubcarwash.com and find a location near you. It's 62 degrees.
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. It's now at least 15 people killed in flooding in Kentucky.
More rain and more evacuations here for this area. The National Guard using helicopters to try and reach so many of these remote areas that are just so difficult to reach with these washed out roads. This morning we are keeping an eye on the town of Jackson, Kentucky. That's because upstream we understand that a dam may be experiencing a break soon. That would be affecting nearly 100 homes, a hospital, and some other facilities down there.
Fox Weather's Will Nunley in Hazard, Kentucky. The Republicans beat the Democrats 10-0 in the congressional baseball game for charity in D.C.
Climate activists had threatened to disrupt the game, and police said 3 protesters were arrested outside the stadium. There was also a rain delay, but in the end, Republicans picked up their second straight win in the annual tradition that dates back to 1909.
Fox's Eric Messersmith. The Republicans have won 44 games to the Democrats' 42 all time. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:31, and we have a beautiful morning right now. 66 our current temperature in Columbia. Bright sunshine, 65 degrees in Jefferson City. I'm Brian Houseworth. Here are some of the stories that we are working on for you in this 7 o'clock hour. Congresswoman Cori Bush calling on Missouri's governor to request a federal disaster declaration from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, after massive flooding in St. Louis for the second time in 3 days. A number of interstates closed, tractor trailers stuck in the high water. Many other people had to be rescued from their vehicles. Lots of damage, still a lot of problems in the St. Louis area. $506 million budget proposed by Columbia City Manager includes funding for construction of a new fire station on Scott Boulevard in Southwest Columbia. That budget will be introduced on Monday at the City Council. Thousands of visitors in Columbia, as well as today, tomorrow, Sunday, for the final weekend of the 38th annual Show Me State Games. Mayor Barbara Buffalo tells the Eagle she's expecting 40,000 visitors between this and last weekend. That includes athletes, spectators as well.
So we know how important it is to support and be a really welcoming environment for having these families come in to visit Columbia.
State transportation officials, meantime, planning to put a roundabout near Highway 54 in Holt Summit. The Fulton Sun reports the Holt Summit Board of Aldermen discussed the issue this week. MoDOT is still in the early planning phases for that. In a $1.1 billion with a B, lottery prize on the line tonight as the numbers are drawn for the Mega Millions game, the giant jackpot, the nation's third largest prize. 29 straight drawings without anyone matching all 6 numbers. 7:33. According to the AP, if you take the cash option, if you win tonight, you're going to come out of there with $648.2 million. $648.2 million if you win that tonight. News brought to you by WillettDentalAssociates.com. Cardinal baseball. The Cardinals off yesterday, so no game to recap. They'll play tonight against the Washington Nationals in Washington. 6:05 first pitch tonight. Cardinals 3 games off the pace in the National League Central Division behind first place Milwaukee. Yadier Molina did play last night in his rehabilitation. Memphis Cardinals as they took on Norfolk. He was hit by a pitch. Did leave the game. That doesn't appear to be anything serious, but boy, he had a lot of fans, really, a lot of young kids too, coming up to him asking for autographs. He signed them all based on the photographs I saw, so very impressive there, and really enjoyed the time, he said, down there in that game. Was hit by a pitch and did leave. Yankees beat the Royals last night, 1-0. Aaron Judge, a walk-off homer in the 9th inning for the win. This Brady Singer, the Royal pitcher, magnificent. 7 scoreless innings, just 1 hit. He strikes out 10 Yankees, best team in baseball, and they still lose the game 1-0. Game 2 of their series, 6:05 tonight. Sports brought to you by ServiceMasterColumbia.com, 7:34. 7:34 here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com. Traffic with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Roads have been pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, 573-874-9390. One note for Monday on the Roachport Bridge project, which is about a $200 million project. They will have to shut down the trail there, the Katy Trail near the bridge. Not any lane closings, but if you're planning on using the trail, not going to be able to use that near the bridge on Monday due to all the work they'll be doing, steel structures, etc., and all the personnel that they're going to need to use that area. So no trail on Monday during the day. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert. I'm also joined by co-host Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Steve, I think you're a self-described low-tax Liberty guy.
Indeed.
What else do we need to know about you?
Local Boone Countyan. I have some radio experience. Was here with Brandon talking about last fall, about the park sales tax. We gave one of the few counterpoints in the community to parks expansion forever. I helped fight back the fairgrounds tax from years ago. One I was actually for was the internet sales tax, filling gaps. But I write a piece every other week in the Columbia Missourian as well, kind of a conservative take. One of the few voices in that regard in the community.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, hopefully, it gets some traction and gives people some food for thought. Point of view, maybe locally they're not hearing otherwise. And I'll compliment you guys, Brandon and the folks here. This is an important service to folks in the community, and limited government, conservative folks. Yeah, you look at the national media; it ain't your friend largely. Mm-hmm. And getting this point of view, especially locally, and saying, "Hey, you know what? You need some encouragement. There's other people like you thinking this way. You're not alone." And I think you guys do an important service. So glad to be part of it this morning.
Thanks so much for joining us, Steve. And yeah, I'm encouraged daily by our Wake Up Columbia family. They keep me laughing on the text line and on Facebook, and we get lots of good. I love when they fact check us.
And sometimes they laugh at us.
Yeah, that's true. Don't say the word. What did I say? De-thaw. That's not really a word. And if you try to use a word that is not a word, they will call you out on it.
Irregardless.
Yeah, there we go.
That's right.
So some important updates yesterday, I think, in the Senate race. We're closing in. We've got 4 days. For the most part, I think a lot of people have decided. There are still some undecideds out there. But here's a really important update. The Kansas City Star is reporting that Vanilla Ice did not okay the use of the McCloskey, or did not okay McCloskey's use of his image on his Facebook page. So anyway, McCloskey, I guess, put out, shared something on his website and on his socials saying, hey, there's a performance by Vanilla Ice and the Yin Yang Twins, and you need to come to the fair and join Team McCloskey. And Vanilla Ice did not like that. And so Vanilla Ice came out and said, hey, just FYI, we didn't give McCloskey permission to reference me or use my name or anything like that. So very important update.
Well, and keep in mind, too, that Vanilla Ice responded because people on Twitter were saying, "Hey, are you supporting him?" And that's basically what happened.
Right. And McCloskey has since said, "Hey, no, we were just saying, hey, if you were going to go see Vanilla Ice, you can also come hang out with the McCloskeys. That's fair." So anyway, some fun news there in the Senate race. Other news though that is really important is early on, when Greitens got in the race, he was the only candidate who came out and said, I will not support Mitch McConnell going forward. Mm-hmm. And he kind of separated himself by that. Yesterday, I think Schmidt weighed in and said, yep, I am not, McConnell hasn't endorsed me, and I am not going to support him in leadership. And then that was closely followed by a tweet from Hartzler, who said, yes, I will not be supporting McConnell. So I think, I think that's pretty big news. I mean, in establishment Republican circles, that the three candidates, I guess, who are in the lead are all saying we won't support McConnell going forward.
The political consultants are probably working real hard on positioning. I think what's going on. The lead three in the polling and so forth say, well, okay, I do that too, and match them.
And when it comes to January, the question for them will be, okay, you don't want to vote for McConnell, you're going to vote for Chuck Schumer, because that's really going to be that's the only other choice. I mean, there's no other. Realistically, there's no other. There'll be somebody runs against McConnell, but he's going to. It's either going to be McConnell or Schumer, depending on who the, now if a Republican votes for Schumer or a Democrat votes for McConnell, that would really cause some problems for themselves.
Yeah. So, but I do think you got to wonder, the Senate race is so impactful. And I know when I go around to other states and I'm talking to folks from outside Missouri, they're watching Missouri because it does matter, especially with as close as the U.S. Senate is and with certain things like those leadership elections. And I think it's also got people, so Missouri matters. And I think it's got people thinking about 2024. And I can't stop thinking about the presidential race and how that's going to shake out. I mean, we've seen Trump and Pence are in Arizona and then they're in D.C. and they're, kind of trading barbs. But, you got DeSantis down there in Florida.
Right. A very viable person. He's demonstrated effective leadership in a pretty big state in our union. A lot of conservatives like the approach that he's taken to pandemic recovery, many other issues, tax and spending, all of that. And, he's the type of person that would rise to a possible presidential candidate. I mean, he's very legitimate and so forth. And there's kind of, a lot of people like Trump and so forth. And again, like we talked about in the previous hour, you maybe like one candidate. Well, I kind of like this person. Well, you're against this other Republican or something. Well, no, I think competition's good. And if, Trump finally, decides, hey, I'm actually going to do this, and DeSantis, I think that's fine. I think that's healthy. You have a good debate of issues and leadership style. Maybe doesn't change who I might be for, but having him put in, that might be very effective and get attention to some of the conservative issues that they might be talking about.
Do you think age plays a factor? We've been talking a little bit about this because with Biden being so Biden and being up there in years, I think before people were a little bit hesitant to vote for someone with less experience, someone a little bit younger. But, Trump will be up there if he enters the race in age. Even Pence will be 65-ish. So, if he were to serve, 8 years, he would be up there. And DeSantis is kind of the young, youthful guy. Do you think that plays a role, especially after a Biden presidency?
Yeah, Mr. Trump's no spring chicken himself. He's very vibrant for his age, no doubt about it. But, somebody who's got the energy. Being president of the United States is incredibly demanding. And whether you see Mr. Obama or Abraham Lincoln, pictures throughout their presidency, they look a lot older. They hit like an aging machine where they turn gray, and it's a lot of stress, the weight of the world on you. And, Trump can certainly take the heat, but, a younger, more vibrant person, that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah, and one article that I saw this week that I thought was really interesting was if, DeSantis and Trump were to go head to head, it really was hitting back on Trump and contrasting DeSantis's COVID policy versus Trump, and basically said Trump kowtowed to he shouldn't have kept Fauci on. He let the bureaucrats take over. He didn't stand up to them, and then DeSantis was really like a freedom fighter and doing his own thing. And so they said basically if the two of them go head to head in a debate, that DeSantis just runs away with conservatives on COVID policy. And I really hadn't really thought about that, but I think they're kind of right.
Yeah, and this isn't to put down any Trump supporters, not trying to cause controversy, but there's the very globalist publication, the Financial Times of London, and there was this editorial a few days ago, beware the coming wave of competent populists, and he basically downplays, he's anti-Trump and so forth, but he said, Trump was kind of shooting from the hip, and taking on the deep state, that's a bigger task than maybe anybody really appreciated. But you have a new generation of populist, America First type talkers like Rick of DeSantis down in Florida, and they actually know how to go toe to toe with the bureaucracy. That's where the change needs to occur. The embedded culture in departments of state and federal level, that's where the inertia of big government's happening. And they need to get in there and know how to reconfigure that. And these people, this new generation, like DeSantis and so forth, gives examples, they know how to do that. And the globalists and the establishment see that as a bigger threat than a Trump that might seem kind of reckless, and he's doing this and he's over here. But these people are more focused and really know how to go through and have the slog of going up to the meetings and how to actually keep accountable and make change that we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of DeSantis' policy has been right on, and he's not afraid. I mean, he's not going to back down from a fight. And it was interesting to me because I was down in Florida for CPAC this year, talking to a lot of folks from Florida, and everyone was trying to talk to them about what do you think about DeSantis for the presidency, and their reaction was, you can't have him. They're so pleased with their governor, and most people, if your governor was going to hit the national stage, you'd be excited for your state, and they're like, no, we want him. He's doing such a good job.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose him.
And if I don't know what the election cycle is in Florida for governor. It might be the same 2024, but would he have to pull a Sarah Walsh and say, you know what, I'm going to give up on the state rep seat to run for higher office? Well, and what happened to Sarah in her district, and it was very unfortunate. But
yeah, and it's worth and fascinating discussion here because it's not that long away. It really isn't. And once we get done with the August primary and then November, and November's just around the corner, it'll be here very, very quickly. We'll start focusing on the gubernatorial race because people are going to, at that point, Governor Parson is essentially going to be considered by some a lame duck. I would argue he's still got a lot of power. He's still got 2 years left, but people start thinking. And
potentially 2 appointments.
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. And he is, doing this trade mission, trying to get more jobs from Bear and stuff like that. So very important. And for people in any party, just to remind everyone, tomorrow, the Boone County Courthouse Boone County, not the courthouse, the Government Center, Roger Wilson Government Center next door will be open from 9 to 1. You can vote absentee. You don't, but you have, at least for this one, the November one will be different. You have to meet the criteria. If you just feel like you don't want to show up to the poll on Tuesday, you have to sign an affidavit. That's not going to work. You're either going to have to be absent from Boone County on Tuesday, or you're going to have, if religious objections for some reason, maybe a poll worker or some sort of a mental or physical disability, some sort of an illness, that would meet the criteria. But if you meet one of those, you can vote absentee tomorrow 9 to 1. And remind everybody again, you will have to pick a party. Do not blame the poll workers. They're not doing that on their own. They have to do that. That is the law right now because, as Brianna pointed out, they are basically choosing the nominee for the party. So that's why they ask you to pick your party. And you won't have to do it in November.
And I'll be glad to do so.
Sure.
Yep, and we encourage everyone to get out and vote. Brianna was saying the turnout, she thought it was going to be between 35 and 40% and said that's pretty typical. I'm hoping for higher turnout this cycle, given all of the Senate candidates and other things and our city council race. So we always like to see a high turnout here in Boone, and I think we beat our expectation in the municipal race in April, and so I'd like to see that again. Well, coming up, let's get into some Feel Good Friday stuff. We've got a lot of things to feel good about today, and the news is so heavy, so I like to celebrate on Friday.
We'll lighten it up.
Yeah, we will. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle. Yesterday, I was complaining that I didn't have any good liners saying Stephanie Bell was the best, but I'm glad I don't have any of those liners either. So
I can make you one if you want me to.
I don't know about that. I'm excited, and I know you all too. Our listeners are as well. Brandon will be back with us on Monday. He was taking some much-deserved time off. We've had a great week. We had the Arps family with us. One morning, we had Randy Tobler, who's here at 4 p.m. with us. Jennifer Bukowski's been with us. Today, we've got Steve Spellman. So we've had a really good, fun week on Wake Up Columbia, but we are looking forward to Brandon returning, although I'm not looking forward to the flip-flops. I'm just not.
You've enjoyed the break from the foot smell in the studio?
Right, exactly. I prefer actual shoes.
I have closed-toe shoes this morning, so.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, we are going to lighten it up a little bit with Feel Good Friday. I always, it's hard when you go to the pump and you're paying $4 a gallon to feel good about much of anything.
Yeah.
But we've got some good news going on in the Wake Up Columbia family. I am particularly loving. So my youngest went to school she's starting kindergarten this year, and I'm feeling all the feels, and I'm feeling a little bit sad. So maybe that's what I'm feeling good about. I am feeling good about. I mean, it's like a new level of parenting, right? When your kids are all school age. So and Southern Boone's in the middle. They just finished their summer school, and it went really well. So very exciting. But Daniel sent us a picture of his baby girl who's 2 weeks old today. And I'm feeling a little bit sad about that stage of my life being over.
Then don't look at the texter, because Jason also texted us at 874-9390 a picture of a little newborn baby.
What was going on 10 months ago from today? Was there a holiday or something going on? We've got whole lots of babies coming in this morning on.
Would have been what, September of last year?
There we go. So lots of good news. I'm also feeling good about the softball team. We get to watch them this afternoon, ESPN, one more game, and then they go to the World Series. How cool is that? To be that young, to be right here from Boone County, and to be on ESPN Plus.
It's great.
And to not only be winning your games, but to be winning them like 17-0.
Right? That is incredible. Steve, what else are you feeling good about on this
We
Friday?
just got back from family vacation. Have been kind of delayed over the summer. We finally found a week carved out between schedules, and we ran down to the Gulf Coast. And the old Kenny Chesney song, no shirt, no shoes, no problems.
I like it.
That kind of came into the sun and the sand and all that. So good to refresh and play in the ocean, and that was good. And we, gas prices were certainly a concern for a 13-hour drive. That's a lot of miles on the car, and so I was like, filling up wasn't fun. But as you got into southern Missouri, gas prices started to go down. $3.89, $3.79. Down by Thayer or somewhere, I saw $3.59. I'm like, is this 85 octane or it's watered down gas or what? Got here, and $4 a gallon, down toward the coast, kind of similar to here. But then on the way back near Jonesboro, a Walmart had $3.39.
Dang.
They had the cheapest gas in town, but I think they had the slowest pump too. But so there's pockets, and especially in like outside of urban areas, it seems like it can be cheaper. Varies per state, but feeling good about just being refreshed and recharged, and time with family.
And some time in the ocean. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that somebody involved with the gas stations in California, Missouri, was listening yesterday when I was whining about how gas was $4.01. And I specifically said, can it just drop 2 cents to be under $4?
Yeah.
And guess what I woke up to this morning? $3.99.
$3.99 on Nifong down too.
Yeah.
So
Hannah is the gas whisperer. Okay, so now we need you to
Okay,
keep
that doesn't sound right.
I'm saying sorry. But if you could just keep, telling those folks to ratchet that down.
Can you lobby for $3? Yeah, try that.
$2.99.
It's a stretch, but
Yeah, come on. Let's get it under $3, guys.
It would be really nice. No, you're right. I mean, getting away and getting these did the inflation and gas prices, did it affect how you were planning the trip at all?
Some, but we kind of held off on a lot of trips. We were overdue for a trip, so it's like spend a little bit here. We stayed at a nice place on the beach, but then we hit the Econo Lodge on the way down, so save a little dough there. Food inflation was a thing. We can probably talk about that later. But yeah, it's on people's minds. But at some point, we're not broke or anything. So you live a little, especially
And with everything going on with the airlines, it's taking a big risk trying to fly. So
we were not going to fly.
Yeah.
No, pretty good sized family, and where we're going, and the delays are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to be snarled up in that stuff.
So Jack just texted us. I think he solved the Wake Up Columbia family baby boom.
Okay.
He said, newborn pictures this time of year, people love celebrating Labor Day.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that would have been
the
day
holiday.
off.
Yeah.
Mystery solved. Mystery solved. Well, we are going to get into the morning bell like we typically do at about 8:15. I've got some more fails, and that was a fail because it's not 8:15. Sorry,
No.
It's 8:23. Hey, it's Friday. I've done my best this week. We're doing great.
You're killing it.
You recently wrote an article, and you really talked about what we should have as far as Columbia governance goes.
Yeah, we
And
talk about that.
Yeah, at 8:10, let's get into that because
Yeah.
I think you had some really good ideas for our community. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
It's now 15 people dead in flooded out areas of Kentucky. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, and more are still missing.
Having no phone, no internet, not having a way to get a hold of people. Our first responders are overwhelmed.
She's among the volunteers helping victims in Hazard, Kentucky. The governor there says he thinks the number of people dead could double and will include children. People have been rescued by boats. Some towns are underwater. Some homes have washed away.
It is just heartbreaking to sit and watch people's belongings, everything that was inside of people's homes. We're even seeing rooftops and appliances just float down this river, and who knows where they're going to end up. Just part of the horrific story that we're seeing unfold here.
Fox Weather's Will Nunley in Hazard. Russia's foreign minister says he is open to talking to the U.S. about a possible prisoner swap that could set Brittany Griner free, the American basketball star detained since February on drug charges. The U.S. also trying to free Paul Whelan, who was convicted in Russia of spying.
The AP reports that the U.S. has proposed trading a convicted Russian arms dealer for Whelan and Griner, who faces up to 10 years in prison for bringing cannabis oil to Russia.
That's Fox's Tanya J. Powers. As monkeypox keeps spreading, especially in New York, that state has declared it an imminent threat to the public.
Monkeypox cases are rapidly spreading across the country. The CDC confirming more than 4,600 cases.
Jessica Formosa with Fox 5 TV in New York. Most of those infected are gay and bisexual men. We just got another update on the economy. Consumer spending barely outpaced inflation from May to June as prices rose more than expected. This inflation guide, closely tracked by the Federal Reserve, showed an almost 7% increase in June from a year ago. Now, some people all across America are saying the same thing.
I want $1 billion.
He bought a Mega Millions ticket in New York. That jackpot's grown to $1.1 billion, the third biggest in U.S. lottery history. America's listening to Fox News.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
And now a small business setback, delivered by a kind French stranger.
Monsieur, there was an accident. The windshield of your catering van is, how do you say, kaput? But Progressive has an extensive network of repair shops. Now, we sing about the old days. Brave marin revient de guerre.
When things go wrong with your small business, it's comforting to know you have Progressive Commercial. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Croissance for everyone.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage subject to policy terms and conditions.
.939 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:03, sunshine 68 right now in Columbia. Our high today will be around 81. Cloudy tonight, low near 63. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. In this 8 o'clock hour, a Vietnam veteran who chairs a Missouri House Interim Committee on Veteran Suicide says he will personally hand the committee's interim report to all 163 members of the House in both parties once it's finished. It's that important to him. Jefferson City State Representative Dave Griffith held the committee's first hearing this week. They heard emotional testimony from a Springfield wife and daughter who lost their veteran husband and their father 8 months ago. Chairman Griffith tells Wake Up Columbia there wasn't a dry eye in the room.
He was a veteran and a police officer. He was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard, and he was an officer in the for Springfield. She came and told us her story, and she told us how she has dedicated her life to making sure that no other family has to go through that.
Chairman Griffith says several veterans began crying during the Springfield woman's testimony. They had to leave the room in tears. Griffith says Missouri leads the nation in veteran suicides. You can hear our full interview with the chairman on our website. It's 939theeagle.com. He also confirms he'd like to have former Secretary of State Jason Kander testify before the committee about the work he is doing in Kansas City with the Veterans Community Project. Meantime, a St. Louis congresswoman whose district has received additional major flooding is calling on Governor Parson today to deploy the National Guard to St. Louis to assist residents with evacuation. Congresswoman Cori Bush also wants the governor to urge FEMA to get on the ground in St. Louis and to request a federal disaster declaration from President Biden. Mid-Missourians who purchase gasoline at the break time convenience stores in California in three of the 4 locations in Jeff City need to make sure their vehicles are operating properly. Columbia-based Break Time says if you are experiencing issues with your car not running properly, you need to call Break Time immediately. They have this number, 1-800-876-6357. They say the issue involves fuel delivery with their primary carrier. Jefferson City's Truman Boulevard location has been cleared to start selling gas again. However, the station in California is not allowed to sell gas right now. They're trying to determine what the issue is. In the other 3 locations in Jeff City, you cannot get gas there as well as the investigation continues. The $500 million budget unveiled by Columbia City Manager on Thursday is tied to the city's strategic plan and to the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. DeCarlin Seawood outlining his proposals during his budget address at City Hall.
So for fiscal year 2023, departments have identified projects with climate impacts. This will allow residents to read about projects helping us meet our climate goals and support departments considering climate effects in their service lines.
Mr. Seawood's budget also includes $48 million in capital improvements and $300,000 for adult immunizations. He also proposes spending $200,000 to study the city's bus system, which is called Como Connect. Columbia's Convention and Visitors Bureau says there are few hotel rooms left this weekend. That's due to thousands of visitors being here for the Show Me State games. CVB's Megan McConaughey is encouraging anyone looking for a hotel room to call 5 573-874-CITY. Mayor Barbara Buffalo tells the Eagle that Show Me State game visitors bring economic and cultural benefits.
So I encourage every Columbia resident and visitor to really put on that smile, welcome people to come here. Maybe be a little bit more patient at our stoplights, if there's a little bit more traffic, because that means those people are having a good experience here in Columbia, and we want them to keep coming back and to think fondly of us when they hear about the words Columbia, Missouri.
Mayor Buffalo estimates the games will generate $7 to $18 million economic impact here in Columbia between last and this weekend. We welcome all our visitors heading into Columbia right now. Listen to us on the Eagle. Our news is brought to you this morning by First State Community Bank. They have a brand new branch they're building on Discovery Parkway here in South Columbia. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, First State Community Bank. Our news time, 8:07. In sports, we're going to start with Daniel Boone Little League, the softball team. Very impressive. They have outscored their 3 opponents this week, 32-2. Marissa Hagler joined us live in earlier, I believe it was in the 6 o'clock hour on Wake Up Columbia, and she points out 32-2 in those 3 games. Yesterday, the toughest game by far, they played Ohio, and Daniel Boone wins it 5-2. So they will play in the championship game, Central State's bracket, if you will. If they win that today at 1 o'clock, they will advance to the Little League World Series. So we hope they can do that. Their opponent will either be Michigan or Indiana, because those 2 teams have to play before the Daniel Boone game to determine who will play Daniel Boone later today. So look forward to that. ESPN Plus will have the coverage. Yankees beat the Royals last night. Aaron Judge hit a walk-off home run in the 9th inning to win it. Royals starter Brady Singer, magnificent 7 scoreless innings, just 1 hit, 10 strikeouts. Game 2 of the series, 6:05 tonight. Cardinals open up a 3-game series at Washington against the Nationals. First pitch tonight, 6:05, right here on 93.9 The Eagle, your home for Cardinal baseball in mid-Missouri. Sports is brought to you by Anderson Windows. You will love your new windows. Anderson Windows here in mid-Missouri. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 8:08. All right, John, thank you. Great work on television this morning with Megan Drakis, as always. We appreciate you. Right now we have sunshine, 68. Weather brought to you by ClubCarWash.com. Traffic with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Roads are pretty quiet in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, 573-874-9390. Let us know if you're seeing something we need to know about. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Stephanie Bell sitting in for Brandon Rathert today, joined by Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Good morning. And producer Hannah.
Hello.
And Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you, Stephanie. Good to see you. And Hannah and Steve, good job this morning.
Likewise, Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Well, we've been going over the budget recommendations that the city released yesterday, following our show, I think 10 a.m. yesterday. DeCarlin Seawood had a press conference, talked about the budget, but also released apparently a 500-page document. You know, I think we can get really bogged down in the details. But Steve, you brought up a good point as we were talking about it. It really is, the budget, it's a lot of numbers, but it really is a larger discussion about priorities for your community.
Yeah, and as living in government, folks, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, government waste and unaccountability and going too far and socialism and all that. But, we're not necessarily anti-government, and there is a role for government, a limited role, and especially local municipal government. And 2 of the main things even conservatives, local limited government folks would agree on is public safety and infrastructure that we use every day. Police and fire, those are important services. I'm okay with the government doing those in a good way. We drove here on public streets. We use water and electric and and sewer and stormwater and so forth. And those are important things that we need to keep up. And if we're going to have a local government at all, public safety infrastructure, do those things right. Do those things adequately. Yes, we support those. I'll pay some tax, a little tax, maybe moderate tax. I don't want to pay a lot, but enough to keep the stuff up in a reasonable way. And Columbia has gone so far beyond that. And I wrote a piece in another publication, someone I met during the April election cycle, and they said, hey, could you put a piece in? And I gave this, and it might not be popular in many circles, but I think that Columbia doesn't deserve the left-wing council that we have and have had. You mentioned in the previous hour, Stephanie, maybe the most left-wing council ever. It's arguable. We don't deserve a right-wing council either, because that wouldn't fit a lot of the university stuff. We really deserve a centrist government. We need to do the basics. We're going to have some parks, maybe fewer parks than some people like, more parks than some other people like. But somewhere in the middle is probably Columbia's destiny, with the very diverse political interests that are in this town.
I agree, and I think we talked recently about how close Randy Minshew, the conservative candidate, got in the mayoral race and how high that turnout was. And there was some discussion about, maybe in some of these city council races that conservatives stay home and don't vote because they're like, well, we're just going to get the left council that we already got. But I think what the Minshew race showed is that, there is a potential for a more centrist or conservative candidate to be successful in Columbia. I really believe that if conservatives do show up and vote, and I do think there are more, and so the larger discussion is there's more conservatives in Columbia than you really think, probably.
Yeah, silent, almost majority. What turns out at the polls quite often is 60% left-ish leaning voting and 40% right-ish leaning voting. But I've heard from some people that I trust, voices I trust, that say, well, it might be actually closer to 50-50. But who feels like their vote's going to make a difference, and who takes the initiative to go do that? And generally, people, left-leaning individuals for big government, collectivism, voting's more important in their life, I think. I think this is a thing that as conservatives, we're living our life, our family, our faith, and business and so forth. And government's a thing. Left-leaning people, it's more important. It's more a central part of their thing, and voting is like a sacrament sort of thing. And it's conservative. We need to show up on Election Day.
And the one thing, too, Steve and Stephanie, about the political, and of course there's more conservatives in town than people realize. There's no doubt about that. There's also a lot of progressives. There's no doubt about it, and they're very, very vocal.
Yep.
Without question, they're very vocal. But the one thing, too, that sticks out to me is I look at the agenda, and it's not posted yet. Probably be posted a little bit later this morning for the Columbia City Council, so I can't see today's yet, but I will when it comes up. But almost every time I look at that agenda for a Monday night, I look at all 15 pages, whatever it is. It depends on how many items are on there. But you look at the first 2 pages, it's who's scheduled to speak. It is almost always progressives that are, and they go, and they sign up, and they have every right to. Conservatives do, but a lot of them don't go, and they don't sign up to go talk. But they're talking about global warming. They're talking about the earth, literally Mother Earth. One guy was talking about Mother Earth a couple of weeks ago. You've got people worried about the homeless, people that are oppressed. I mean, there's
it's a virtue signaling session.
But they show up.
Boone County pachyderms, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, the point, but it doesn't even have to be ideological. If someone wanted to go down and say, we have a big pothole problem on Lamone Industrial, which, by the way, we do, or we have, it's getting a little bit better, they could. But usually, it seems to me, it is about something that is, well, it's almost always with the climate. I mean, lately. And they do show up. I think last meeting there were 4 or 5 people, and then there were some business folks that did show up that complained about the crime down at the Wabash. So, but again, I encourage, if someone has an opinion on an issue, you have the right to let Sheila and me know, and they'll give you the time. I believe it's once a month. I think you can't show up every meeting. I believe that's the rule. But again, the people, they take the time to show up.
Now, Steve, you mentioned 2 important things that you think the government should take care of, and that's infrastructure and policing and fire.
Public safety.
If you were to give Columbia a grade for those 2 things right now, what do you think? How do you think they're doing on those?
C or D. I mean, it's not terrible. We're not a basket case. But public safety, there's been a chronic understaffing in the police. There's positions available. Mm-hmm. They're funded, but for any reason they can't attract enough staff and so forth. And part of that's support. Part of that's, the city council and leadership, supporting that and making sure that's a good culture and that they have their back and so forth. Fire is an ongoing scandal. I think scandal is a strong term, but it's basically Columbia. The footprint of Columbia has expanded greatly.
Sure.
We're a growing community, but the fire department has not expanded appropriately to match that need. And basically, where I see the city manager talking about building another fire station, yes, yesterday, do it. Okay, that's going to cost something, several $1 million. That's tax dollars. Well, yeah, because for years, the city footprint has expanded, the city limits, but again, the city fire protection hasn't. And so Boone County Fire Protection District has to cover some of those areas. And there's been confusion like out Scott Boulevard and Southwest about who responds to what, funding streams and so forth.
And when you're talking about those types of situations, every minute matters. So proximity and location really does matter. Yeah, I mean, I think the fire station item, I think a lot of conservatives could get behind that. You also mentioned in your piece about what kind of government Columbia deserves. You talk a little bit about the trash, and that was most surprising. It didn't come up at all yesterday in the budget discussions. That we'll say the dirty word roll carts. We keep having this debate, but city government right now seems to basically be ignoring that issue, but it's still an issue. People are still putting their bags out. It's a major problem. But you kind of seem, I don't know, indifferent about the trash issue?
We hear a lot of voices and preferences. The Spellman clan, like probably most people in Columbia, are like, okay, it's a bag. Okay. I may like it, not like it, but I'm going to put out whatever you say I'm supposed to put out. You give me a roll cart, I'll use the roll cart. I don't know. I'm not going to show up to a council meeting and yell about trash preference. But really, this is such a glaring example. Like Matt Pitzer, level-headed person on the council there, is like, what other Western community and Western civilization is talking about trash so much? I mean, we can't figure this out. But there's some doctrinaire people that are putting in, say, there's an idea to just, what if we just privatize trash collection? Is that a central role of government, running trash trucks? They have. There's things that aren't working. But some people say, that's bad. We can't do that. That's private sector. Somebody might make money on it. It's bad. We could open it up to competition. We could have a trash collection service that the city runs, and that's an option. They might have a bag. They might have whatever. But when I lived in the county, you had options about who picks up your trash, which service, what day of the week. Is it a roll cart? Is it a dumpster? Is it bags or whatever on the ground? And they have differing rates and different service levels.
Now you're speaking my free market language.
There is a great teachable moment. You know what? Government trash has failed. And the government consensus making about trash reform has failed. We've been going for years about this, and nothing. Jack hasn't changed. It's maybe gotten worse based on some people's opinion. You got a government monopoly on trash bags. You must use their bag. No matter what you got in your house, you got to put it in their bag to have picked up. This is socialism. This is a great example of failed socialism.
Yeah, there's few things I hate more than the government telling me what I have to do about inside my house or relative to
Give
my
people
own
options
business.
as far as trash goes. Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting discussion about city government and the city priorities and what we deserve. I agree. I think we deserve something very different than what we're currently given. But it's on us to step up, to show up, like Brian said, and to speak our minds and to make sure there is a diverse point of view being heard at the city government level. Coming right up, Fox Business is giving some folks some advice about what to do if you do win the Mega Millions. And I think I might actually buy a ticket. And so if you're the big winner, we've got some advice for you coming up in the Morning Bell.
You dump it, they bump it. I'm talking about Pro Pumping and Hydrojetting. They do the real hard work. And I want to tell you about this. When it comes to servicing, emptying out lagoons and septic tanks, people over the past few years, they've started to realize, oh, yeah, it's Pro Pumping and Hydrojetting here in mid-Missouri. And now might be a really good time to think about that because it's been warm. Haven't had a whole lot of rain. So it makes it easier for them to get a lot of their equipment to your place without ruining your yard and things like that. But I'll tell you what, they send me pictures all the time of some of the places they get into. It's just remarkable what they do. And I think that's important because the length, the extra length, that extra effort, they make sure that you're happy. That extra length they go through to make sure you're happy and satisfied. Pro Pumping and Hydrojetting, pro-pumping.com. You dump it, they pump it.
This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rather. You know, I feel like, Hannah, we've been doing a lot of manifesting lately. Yesterday, I manifested that the city budget folks would talk about climate change, and they did. You manifested gas in Centralia under $4, and you got your $3.99 gas.
In California, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, in California. And today I'm going to manifest a Mega Millions win on one of our Wake Up Columbia listeners, because we're gonna give you advice, so once you win, you know what to do, all right?
And if that manifestation comes true, feel free to share with Wake Up Columbia.
That's exactly right. So there was an interesting article on Fox Business, and I think it's always fun to dream about what would happen if you actually hit it big. And so far, even though Raising Cane spent $50,000 on lottery tickets for all their employees, nobody won then. Other people, have spent a lot of money on these lottery tickets. It's up to $1.2 billion, the Mega Millions. So they had a financial advisor on there, and Steve, you're a financial advisor, but so I want to see if you agree with this guy. He said, should you take a lump sum or annual payouts? Now, if you take the lump sum, you get less. You get like 40% less. And they said everyone is very excited to take the lump sum because you get it all at once. And you don't have to do the payout. But this person is saying no, that the sudden wealth creates very poor decision making, and that a lot of people who win the lottery, and you've seen these shows on TV where they just spend it all and then they're left with nothing. And so he said, A, if you take the annual payouts, you get the full amount, and B, it helps you course correct that if you still get a ton of money, but it helps you course correct that if you start making poor decisions up front, you're not suddenly out of money. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So for regulatory things, I want to say I'm not giving anyone financial advice.
Sure.
Get your own advice and so forth. I don't play the lottery, so I'm not going to have this problem. But people do run into this. Say people work at the university or others that maybe have a pension plan offering still, and there's an option when they retire. Do I want to take a rollover lump sum, or do I want to take a life annuity type of thing, a pension that pays out on an annual, monthly basis for the rest of their life? And the system's kind of dumb. So get your own advice about what that means, but the system doesn't know what your life expectancy is, how long, what your other financial resources are, what your income needs are. This is well above anybody's income needs winning the lottery or whatever. But your point about it's guaranteed by the issuer, for a number of years, so you have a consistent income stream. And that responsible person might say, well, actually that might work, because people that get this big lump sum, was it $600 million and after tax $300 or whatever, there's documentaries and so forth about winning the lottery destroys their life.
Sure. And you think about, too, I think about like professional athletes the same way. They've got 10 good years. They
or
make
Mike
all
Tyson,
this money.
his life went to crap, And
yeah. And luckily, Missouri protected folks, so I think you can be anonymous now, right? Is that right? So maybe all of your neighbors aren't knocking down your door?
Officially, but, people want to find out.
All right. Well, we're wishing everyone out there who's playing the Mega Millions some luck, and hopefully my manifestations continue, and one of you gets really lucky tonight. Coming right up, we are going to do winners... Oh, well, yeah, that too. Winners and losers of the week coming right up. If you have a nomination, let us know.
Stop by Club Car Wash to get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details at clubcarwash.com. It's 66 degrees.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. There are now at least 15 people killed and more missing in flooding in eastern Kentucky. Brenda Bailey lives in Hazard and says there are people waiting to be rescued.
People crying out for help on Facebook, having no phone, no internet, not having a way to get a hold of people.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says hundreds of homes could be destroyed. Russia's foreign minister says he's open to speaking with Secretary of State Antony Blinken about a prisoner swap involving basketball star Brittany Griner.
Blinken said this week that the Biden administration had proposed a deal with Russia that could bring Griner home, along with Paul Whelan, another jailed American who was sentenced to 16 years in a Russian prison on espionage charges in 2020. The U.S. has proposed trading a convicted Russian arms dealer for Whelan and Griner, who faces up to 10 years in prison for bringing cannabis oil to Russia.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Griner was arrested in February. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:31, sunny, 71 right now here in mid-Missouri, 71 in Columbia, 69 in Jefferson City. Good morning. I'm Brian Houseworth. Great to have you with us. Mid-Missourians who purchase gasoline at the Break Time convenience store in California in 3 Jefferson City locations need to make sure your vehicles are operating properly. Columbia-based Break Time says if you are experiencing issues, you should call Break Time directly, 1-800-876-6357. But before you get on the highway, make sure the car is running properly. Now, Break Time says the issue involves fuel delivery with their primary carrier. Now, we have listeners on the 93.9 The Eagle Facebook page that are saying on our Facebook page that whoever was the delivery man put diesel into the gas tank. That is what they're saying on our Facebook page. That is not being said publicly by Break Time. Break Time does say the Jeff City Truman Boulevard location has been cleared to start selling gas again. But again, be very careful if you've had gas there in California or the other 3 locations. And then if you have a problem, give a direct call to Break Time. A Mid-Missouri Republican representative who chairs the Missouri House Interim Committee looking into veteran suicides is praising the work of veteran and former Democratic Secretary of State Jason Kander. Chairman Dave Griffith tells Wake Up Columbia he'll invite Kander to testify in August about his work with the Veterans Community Project in Kansas City.
Jason Kander has done some amazing things in Kansas City with the tiny homes project he's got over there. About 2 years ago, I went over and visited that facility, and I was very impressed with what they're doing with homeless veterans.
Our news time, 8:33. And our news was brought to you in this 8 o'clock hour by the folks at First State Community Bank. Time now to take a look at sports. And we've got an interesting day in sports today because the Cardinals will take on the Washington Nationals. I always want to call them the Washington Senators. If you're older, you remember the Washington Senators. They weren't very good, quite frankly. They used to say Ike was the only one winning down in Washington, referring to Dwight Eisenhower. He was pretty popular. The Senators were not. This is the Washington Nationals. Cardinals in Washington tonight. 6:05, your first pitch here on 93.9 The Eagle. Yankees beat the Royals last night 1-0. Aaron Judge hits a walk-off home run in the 9th inning to win it. Boy, what a tough loss. Brady Singer, the Royals starter, magnificent. He threw 7 scoreless innings, gives up 1 hit, 10 strikeouts, and they still lose the game to the New York Yankees, who have a payroll about 4 times the amount of the Royals. Just amazing. Game 2 of their series, 6:05 tonight as well. Our sports is brought to you in this 8 o'clock hour by the folks at First State Community Bank. Our news time, 8:34. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to post your job opening today. Our roads are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, you can give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. We'll have more team coverage in less than 30 minutes, and we have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
And now for nominees for the winners and losers of the week on 93.9 The Eagle.
I love this time of the week. If you have a winner or loser of the week, you can text us. You can get on our Facebook page. Our number is 874-9390. We've already gotten some pretty interesting submissions. Hannah, you just posted one, and it is pretty good.
Yeah, I got an awesome email yesterday from a Wake Up listener. Her name is Stephanie, and she was sharing a Feel Good Friday story, and this is her granddaughter. And this might be the youngest winner of the week that we have ever had on Wake Up Columbia. But this little girl, her name is Paisley. And basically, her grandma, Stephanie, was reaching out to tell her story. And Paisley has been hospitalized since birth. She spent a lot of time in the NICU and the PICU at the University of Missouri Hospital. Of course, we do our radiothon, our Children's Miracle Network radiothon every year to benefit the Children's Hospital here in Columbia. They're working on building a brand new facility here in town. And this is just a story of a little girl who's benefited from, our top tier children's hospital right here in Columbia. And, Paisley has a whole slew of medical conditions that she has battled since birth. She was born at 23 weeks and she weighed 1 pound and 4 ounces and was classified as a micro preemie. And today, at 17 months old, she finally gets to come home from the hospital.
Man, that's awesome.
Every life is precious.
Amen. And
awesome.
Hannah's story is so powerful. And there's a picture of this little girl on our Facebook page that Hannah just read. She's got a lot of hearing loss too. It's very sad, but what a positive. Again, somebody that's dealing with it, and a huge smile on her face, by the
yes.
way. That's awesome.
And cute little pigtails. I liked those too.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give a shout out to winners of the week, that Daniel Boone softball team.
Oh,
You've been
yeah.
following them. You're going to be able to watch them on ESPN this afternoon. But very exciting to see local folks right here in Boone County on the national stage. And, we're wishing them well for the state championship. Steve, do you have winners or losers of the week?
I got a winner of the week. We ran down to the Gulf Coast for family vacation last week. And little Zane Spellman, youngest son, he's 4, first time on the ocean beach.
That's awesome.
Hit the same, the waves and stuff. He's getting beat up and, doing a little body surfing there out with Dad and the older brother. And, I had the Kenny Chesney song in my head, no shirt, no shoes, no problems. Little Zane had a sun in the sand and a pink lemonade in his hand, as the case may be. But, he's winner of the week. Had a good time.
Living his best life.
That's
You
great.
bet.
What part of the Gulf Coast did you get to go?
Alabama, Orange Beach is where we ended up being. Well,
beautiful.
He did have experience in sand, and we would hit the Hinkson Beach near Twin Lakes a number of times. We take our sand stuff, but this was a lot bigger venue.
Yeah, Orange Beach is just gorgeous. It really is.
What about you, Brian? You got winners and losers? No losers, right?
No losers right now. Occasionally I have one, but
You almost named the Cardinals losers earlier this week. They had kind of a rough go.
They did, and that was just one of those games you just have to kind of move on. But 2 real quick ones. Our first responders for the job they've done locally, but especially in St. Louis, responding to, literally, they're not used to going out on interstates in boats like they've had to do. And literally, it almost looks like an ocean. It's that, you can't tell. Look at the tractor trailers in these videos. That's swift water that can carry people away. It's very tough to do, and they've done a really fabulous job. Yes, I know there was one fatality, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, probably more than that, have been rescued. And we've got a call from the Congresswoman for the National Guard to get involved, and they very well may get activated. But kudos to those first responders. And then personally, to my friends at MU Health, taking care of my allergies. My goodness, this week, Stephanie, my 5:30 newscast, my voice almost cut out. I'm on my spray and stuff, but they take good care of me. So dealing with that, and but I appreciate them taking care of me. That if my voice ever goes out, you know why? It's my allergies and stuff. So
I have a loser of the week.
Okay.
Did you see this story from ABC 17 yesterday about the guy who lost his pet zebra?
Yes.
What?
He lost his zebra. So he's in Miller County, which is around the lake area. And basically he lives around a 600-acre farm kind of. And the zebra is lost somewhere amongst those 600 acres. And he has been unable to find him. So he's got word out with the local authorities, and they're all on zebra watch. But nobody can find Marty the zebra.
And they've got video, Hannah. They've got video of the thing like in a field or whatever.
Yeah.
And it looked like they're close, but they can't. And they can't when they get get too close, the thing runs away.
Where do we need like some real cowboys? Like, do you lasso a zebra? I don't know. Like, how do you catch it?
I think they've been walking around with one of those blow dart things trying to.
They're gonna like.
I think so, trying to get it to go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I worry on something like that. Hannah's right. In ABC 17 actually you got the Columbia City manager giving, and I'm not laughing, but the Columbia City manager gave his state of and all the other stuff going on, the flooding and everything. And ABC 17's lead story at 6 o'clock last night was the zebra missing in Miller County. And they did a fine job, and it's certainly newsworthy. They did. But what I'm serious note, I'm worried about like a mountain lion, because that thing does not look very big. I don't know. It doesn't look big in the video. It looks small, but you can't really see it from afar. I don't know if a mountain lion would try to attack a zebra. I don't know.
I don't know, Brian. You know what they say? What's black, white, and red all over? It's the news.
That's true. Exactly.
Well, and when I first joined the Wake Up Columbia family, remember how there was like a lost parrot and someone was mailing postcards to everyone trying to find their lost parrot? We love like good food fun and good pet fun.
There was a turkey on the loose.
That's true.
Tom the turkey that ended up being a female turkey.
Yes.
Tina the turkey, wasn't it?
Tina the turkey.
Oh, gosh.
I remember
ended up
that.
being a male.
Well, I'm going to take a turn to a more serious note, and I have to still give out the vote for Loser of the Week to Joe Manchin. I gave him, I think, Winner of the Week a couple weeks ago because he really had put the kibosh on this huge reconciliation plan, and he apparently spent some time in the basement with some other Democrats, and they hashed out this plan, and now I think we're like $700 billion, 15% corporate minimum tax, the largest investment in climate policy ever. And I was really holding out hope that he was going to stick with us and at least put the brakes on, give it a hard look. And now it looks like we might be stuck with
He
this.
got pulled back into the fold, sucked back in.
They very well may have threatened his committee chairmanship too. I mean, it's possible. We'll never know that. I mean, if you look at the Twitter activists on Twitter, the progressive activists, they despise him, and they want. I mean, literally. I mean, the stuff they say about him, they don't even consider him a Democrat. But what they don't sometimes think of, if they push him, he could become a Republican, and Mitch McConnell would become essentially the leader. He still votes with the Republicans on a lot of key things. But Jason Smith on our last interview, Stephanie, he really thought he would vote with the Republicans. So that's a surprise.
I think Republicans are still holding out for Kirsten Sinema on
That's
maybe
true.
helping us out, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So that's a big Loser of the Week. I do want to end on a positive note. Hannah, did you see this 4-year-old new Bloomfield boy?
Oh, yes.
He is so cute. He has a very long mullet, and his name is Cannon, and he made it to like the final round. I didn't know there was a mullet competition, but I'm not surprised that someone from mid-Missouri is in the running. I've seen a lot of good mullets around, and he's super cute.
I just don't. I don't support this new mullet trend. I'm sorry.
I see kids with them. And now the mullet kid, that's not associated with the zebra. It's not like the Zebra King or something like this going on.
Nope, he's completely
Separate
separate.
deal, okay.
Separate from that. I mean, I like a mullet, but on Morgan Wallen, not necessarily on like everyday people in in mid Missouri. Other winners of the week, I have to say Australians. Have you seen this? Remember when we had an avocado shortage? Apparently, they have 20% oversupply of avocados in Australia, and so I'm thinking that's winning because there for a while here they got so pricey, and with inflation they're pricey. And being the true millennial that I am, I love a good avocado toast.
Good for them.
So yeah, Australians are definitely winning this week. Okay, coming right up, we've got some leftovers for you. We've got a couple things we didn't get to, and then we'll hit really quickly, and then we will wrap up, and it'll be time for the Gary Nolan Show at 9 a.m. This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert, joined by Steve Spellman. And Steve, you said you were having a little bit of bipartisan tendencies this morning with some of the news that's coming out.
Hearing some stuff. I know it's challenging, but trying to be open-minded. Hearing about, suicide prevention and mental health. And remember Jason Kander, Democrat, ran for a statewide office. And I think years ago he's running for, Casey Mayor in a primary. And he said, hey, I got to back out because he's having suicidal thoughts again. He said, I'm having stress and I need to back off. And it takes a big man to say, I got to regroup. I got things in my life and I got to step back from this leadership opportunity. So kudos to him. I've never voted for him or endorsed him as a candidate, but, kudos in that regard. Typically when listeners hear Cori Bush, it's like, oh my gosh, what's this?
What's next?
St. Louis, these floods, declare a state of emergency. Well, yeah, I agree.
The pictures are incredible. I mean, right down in the central West End, like the city.
If ever you're going to declare that, look,
it's and the rain's still coming, and they had it bad. What was that, Tuesday night, and it just keeps. I mean, I have friends on Facebook posting, I hope we're going to be okay, and it's really a lot of water.
And even new Columbia Mayor Barbara Buffalo. Many listeners might not agree with a lot of her policies and ideas, but when the Show Me games are in town, she had the clip with Brian and so forth, the top of the hour previously, and she said, hey, Show Me games are coming in town. Let's show hospitality and put Columbia's best foot forward. Well, yeah, okay, great.
I can agree with that.
I'm on board.
I felt a little bit triggered because she said something like, hey, let's be nice at the stoplights, and I'll actually be in town. My son's going to play soccer in the Show Me game, so I'm going to be one of those people traipsing all over Columbia and probably be a little bit frustrated with the traffic. So it was a good reminder, though, to hear from her, like, hey, let's smile, let's make sure it's a welcoming place. But I always love when I'm in town and there are big events going on because I love seeing, people flooding to our local businesses.
You bet. It's good for the economy and a vibrant community.
Other news that we'll be watching, I don't know what you're going to be watching this weekend. We're days away from the Senate race, so I suspect there's going to be some big news, probably some harsh words. Twitter has been absolutely insane this week, and I suspect that will continue over the weekend. We did find out yesterday that Vanilla Ice is not in support of Mark McCloskey using his name. So Mark McCloskey is going to be at some fair where Vanilla Ice is and said something about, hey, come find the Team McCloskey at the Vanilla Ice concert. And Vanilla Ice responded, hey, just FYI, Mark McCloskey didn't ask to use my name or my picture or anything like that. But interestingly, also yesterday we found out Eric Greitens came out really early and said, you know what, I'm not going to support Mitch McConnell for leadership if elected to the U.S. Senate. Really, the other Senate candidates hadn't weighed in much on that issue, and so that was one area where Eric Greitens could distinguish himself. Right now is really important, and we see all of the candidates, including for our local city council race here, trying to distinguish themselves from one another. And yesterday, Eric Schmidt came out and said, hey, I also will not be supporting Mitch McConnell. He hasn't endorsed me, and I don't endorse him. And then we saw, following that, an announcement from Vicky Hartzler that she also would not be supporting Mitch McConnell. So they're all on the same page there.
Yeah, next Tuesday, election day and so forth. If you're in a perspective of limited government, you're a conservative, please show up. Have your voice be heard. Yelling at Fox News or nodding in the car and giving thumbs up when you're listening to Eagle. That's great, but show up on election day too. A lot of down ticket decisions as well. Congress, we didn't get into that. Boone County split between the 3rd and 4th district, so you got a decision to make there, particularly if you're in the there's 3rd and 4th that's split in Boone County there. But also, Boone County presiding commissioner, two really, candidates that people would recognize, Connie Liepert and James Pounds, which have been on the Eagle. So a decision to be made there. Who wants to we won on the November ballot there in that regard.
Steve, it sounds like you got an opinion about Boone County getting split. Having been involved in caucuses and been a Boone Countyan for a long time, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it was disappointing. It's a complicated maneuvering and so forth that I don't speculate, but, just as for instance, say a Boone County conservative was kind of maybe torn between two really good local candidates of Taylor Burks and Sarah Walsh, just hypothetically. And they're like, oh, who do I vote for? That's a hard decision. Okay. And then Boone County gets split basically down Broadway, north and south. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so Sarah Walsh is like, well, all my people in southern Boone, but I'm in running for the 3rd district, which is now shifted over North Boone and then to the west. And she decided, unfortunately, that she had to drop out. And Taylor was like, well, I've been campaigning, and my people are, in the 3rd as well, because they already decided which district they're going to be in. The district changed, and so he's going to move to Northern Boone and still running that. And it's just a really disappointing thing about, one function of government is you have a census every 10 years, you figure out what it is, you draw a reasonable map, and really it's been government failure. I mean, our transportation network got a lot of deferred maintenance. That's government failure. They should have been taking care of that and focusing on it. And having new maps based upon the census in a timely manner, that didn't happen. And I think there's a lot of blame to go around.
I think there was a lot of blame at the feet of the legislature placed this year, and I think people are concerned, and a lot of people, not here, but around the state are going to be watching those state Senate races on Tuesday. We talked to Representative Reich about that, going into special session, and then with next year with the priorities. I know you're a big education, focus on education and education reform, and that seems to hit a roadblock every year. And so a lot of these issues that are important to, limited government people, most of the time if the legislature is not acting, I'm happy. If things are but there are some things that we need them to act on.
To undo.
Right.
Undo big government.
And it's been frustrating, I think, watching just everything grind to a halt in the state legislature. And the congressional maps were one where, all eyes were on them. And I think we were one of the last states to get the maps drawn. And, in the end, it was Boone County that, nobody else would compromise to split their own county. We had all the drama in St. Charles and all of that. So they said, well, Boone. And now, I guess we'll have. Do you think there's any advantage to having two congressional members kind of looking over Boone County, or?
There's an argument I've heard that, Boone County might have a say in both of those as a significantly sized community in both the 3rd and 4th districts. I think we're one voting block in Columbia, Boone County. It's one community. Have that split, I think, is inappropriate. There's some political strategists who say that, maybe there's advantage or there's reasons, but, it looks weird. It feels weird. Whether it's Chuck Basie said, hey, I'm in one district, across Highway 40 is another congressional district. Does that make sense? He said it was, very unfair to Sarah Walsh. He said that openly, so it's unfortunate. But, it's Feel Good Friday, and folks, political thing, I don't have the world by a string, and neither do you, but, focus on your own life, your family, what you're doing for a living. Do the best you can. Like Gary Nolan says, carpe diem, be the best you can. That's what you got control of. There's stuff you can control, stuff you can't, but live your life the best you can.
And show up. Show up to the polls.
Have your voice be heard.
Yeah, we want you to vote. We want you to be engaged, and I think that's always really important. And we're better when we're all engaged and we're all informed and we're all participating. Well, we have a big week coming up. Brandon will be back next week. We've had a really fun week, and I'm glad he got a little bit of time away. But we are going to have Congressman Billy Long on the show on Monday.
Super.
We've also got Jay Ashcroft in studio on Monday. Next week is a huge week for elections. Really excited to talk to him. And then, of course, we will be having some live Election Day coverage on primary night to make sure everyone is up to date. There's going to be a lot. I'm watching this Boone County presiding commissioner race closely. We've got a judge race on the Democrat side. Just a lot of stuff here locally. And then, of course, counting down the days to that big Senate race. It feels like it's been a long slog to get here, but it also feels like it's come up really fast.
Well, Stephanie, I appreciate your invite and being part of the Eagle this morning. Wake Up Columbia. Hannah, Brian, been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Gary Nolan coming up next.